Welcome to Truth UnCompromised. I am your host, Rhonda. Join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Truth is peace. Truth is justice and freedom to love, live, and be. Music provided by sourcevibrations.com. I am love. I am peace. I am free. I have abundance. I have everything within me. For I was, for I am, for I always be. We are love. We are peace. We are free. We have abundance. We have everything within us. For we are, for we will always be. For Mother Earth is love. For Mother Earth has peace. For Mother Earth is free. For Mother Earth has abundance. For Mother Earth has everything within her. For she was, for she is, for she will always be. And so it is spoken. So it has been written, and it is done.
You have entered into a dimension of truth where time does not exist and illusions are shattered. The journey of truth is intense. The journey of truth will set you free. Consider this a warning as you enter the dimension of truth uncompromised.
All right, family. Welcome to the Truth Uncompromised show. I am your host, Rhonda, and tonight is November 7th. We have a great show planned for you. We are continuing our series, The Real Pilgrims, the true story of immigrants coming to America, Part 4. So if you haven't joined us on this series, the first couple of episodes, we got into the meaning of the term indentured servants, and we discovered that most of the indentured, not most, all of the indentured servants were Caucasian/white coming from Europe, either as prisoners serving out a sentence or labor contracts. So just to give you the reference of source of material that we are using, two of the main sources anyway, a book that was actually on the New York Times bestseller list called White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. And the other source of material, they were white and they were slaves, The Untold History of the Enslavement of Whites in Early America by Michael A. Hoffman II. And then I am also recommending once again, because we are still referring back to his work, we used his work in the Black Nobilities, but I am cross-referencing his research in his particular books with this series as well. It's the Negro Question Part 6 and the Negro Question Part 4, The Missing Link. Negro Question Part 6 is the 13th Black Colonies, and the author is Lee Cummings. So, with that said, I am going to bring on my host. I'm excited about tonight. There's been a lot of fallout from the Harriet Tubman movie that was put out. A lot of people are calling it garbage. I personally do not see slave movies. I know it's a psychological game that is being played, and it's very inaccurate. Well, it so happened when we did the Black Nobility series, Brother Lee Cummings identified who Harriet Tubman really is and who she was really saving. So we're going to go back over that as well tonight. So with that said, I am going to bring on my co-hosts, Brother Sean and Sis Sandra. So here we go. Let me bring on Brother Sean. Peace and love, Brother Sean. How are you?
Wholeness and power, sis. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. It's good to hear your voice.
Likewise.
All right. Let me bring on Sis Sandra. Peace and love, sis. How are you?
Oh, peace and love, Rhonda, Sister Rhonda, and Brother Sean into the family. I'm doing pretty good. Actually, I'm really good. I'm just
good.
What they got going
Wholeness and power.
Wholeness and power.
Good to hear your voice, sis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I always have to start off and ask you, Sis Sandra, since all of this drama with the California fires, and I know that you are out in Cali. So how's everything going your way?
Well, so far I haven't paid much attention to the fires. They're not saying too much about them. They're talking about earthquakes now. I mean, we're getting it. But the utility company is turning off people's electricity, and they about to duke it out with the governor, because they just, flex alerts and turn it off because of the wind and stuff like that, and people are not getting notified, or they get notified, and it's bringing in difficulty for people in their health-wise. So that is, to me, a monopoly. And
absolutely.
Where they can control when they going to turn your electricity off, or when they can control when they're going to add extra money to your bill because they feel like you weren't paying enough. So the state of California is thinking about taking over their company.
No, that's not true. Well, after the Paradise fires, I thought supposedly and allegedly PG&E was filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah, they were, but see what they're doing now is making people pay exorbitant bills.
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah.
All of a sudden, we're gonna bill you an extra $300 because your gas bill wasn't high enough.
Wow.
Our meter must have been wrong. This kind of stuff
really.
Yeah, and they did it to me. That's why I come and speak that. I can say that.
Yeah, you're living it, so you know for sure. Absolutely.
I'm not getting it from somebody else. I'm getting it from my bill.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's how they're trying to come up with the money. So to pay their debts, I'm assuming, and then they're gonna punish, I guess, the people for getting awarded, California people, whoever's on the jury, by turning off their electricity when they get ready. So.
Yeah, California is a wreck right now, and PG is just one example, and it's a big example. But yeah, California has a lot of things going on. I still personally believe they're trying to move a lot of people off that land. Logic Before Authority, he has a YouTube channel. He said that the radiation level on ground in California is off the charts. I think he said California, yeah, parts of Arizona, because he's been documenting plasma like explosions. He's been documenting, showing from satellite images how plasma has been hitting areas in California and where fires have been starting. So it's interesting because, like we've talked about before, we know that the radiation levels across the planet is rising, and as we've stated on the show, going on 2 years, that the radiation is coming from up underground as well as atmosphere radiation.
That kind of radiation, don't they call that radon?
Yeah, that's why I remember when I shared with you that somebody that I know was buying a house, and they had to, before they closed, they had to do radon testing. And I'm like, what? And they were like, yeah, they just started it. So they didn't understand why, but I immediately knew why, because the radiation levels are rising. So yeah, absolutely.
Most of us don't have basements. And I've always wondered why, because we could use some basements, especially in Earthquake City, but maybe that radon was already high. And they didn't have basements in California.
Yeah, could very well be. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And remember, I made the statement that it's going to get to the point where the food supply, because as the planet's radiation rises, because the frequency is changing, and if you're in tune with the correct frequency, as the radiation levels rise, it's not going to impact you. But guess what? As that radiation is coming from up out of ground, last time I checked, food is also grown in the ground, or even the water supply that you use, that's atmosphere, which radiation is coming from that as well. So my point being that the radiation would also be in the food and the fruits and the vegetables. So it's going to be a point where people that are out of balance, out of tune, they're going to start struggling with even eating the food supply as well. So it's real interesting. Yeah.
I can attest to that because I like to garden. And my ground got so hard you can't even break it. And then even if I put it in pots, some tomatoes who require heat to bloom and generate didn't give out any fruit until February. Fall. So I'm like, what kind of tomato is this? And it doesn't bloom until fall because everything is kind of like topsy-turvy.
Yeah, it's been real. I still have roses that are blooming. This will probably be their last shot since it finally got cold. But
I still have tomatoes that's blooming, and I'm just gonna take them down and give them to the birds or whatever. But yeah, it's been really, really interesting. If, like you said, if you garden, you can definitely pick it up. A lot of the crops that are like want a little bit more cold tolerant, like the butternut squash and things of that. They didn't do as well this year because it stayed so warm for so long. So yeah, things are definitely changing, most definitely.
Exactly. And don't forget the purple sky.
Oh yeah. We're just gonna ignore all of that. The purple skies, the the pink skies, and it was interesting. I don't know if this happened to everybody, but we just had a time change. Last weekend, where time went back, right?
Right.
So help me to understand. If the time went back, and you used to getting up, pretty much 5 days a week, and when you get up, it's dark, and you get to your destination at work, and you could sit in your office every day and literally film the sun rising. Why, when the time went back, you follow the same schedule, get up, and the sun is already up? I'm like, I'm confused.
Yeah, I went to LA and the sun was up about 6 or 7 in the morning. Early.
It's coming up about 6 now. Yeah,
it was different shadows, and I'm like, why is the shadow back there and the sun is in front of my face? It was like really weird. But I said maybe the freeways going south and east at the same time. I don't know. But it was funny to see the sun in the south as I was traveling. And then in the east at the same time. So I said, well, maybe they're trying to catch up with what the sun really does. I don't know, but I thought it was.
I don't know. Big. Yeah, it's weird because somebody else said, no, the sun's just gonna rise earlier, and then it's gonna set earlier too. I'm like, well, I understand setting earlier, but sorry, I'm not buying this whole the time went back and it rises earlier. That's just not computing with me at all.
You could kind of tell the magnetic change in certain things, Say, for instance, if you use crystals, you can see the answers and the things you use with crystals are different directions. Like you can go in one part of the house, my house, and it's different in another part of my house. The same thing I'm trying to do. And I'm like, what's the matter? And it's the magnetic field is speeding up to change.
Yeah. It's definitely doing that. Yep. Absolutely, sis. Okay, so do you have any go ahead on with the fuckery this week?
Well, I'm just watching this drama with Trump. I think he's laying low. He's gonna kill them all. Not literally kill, but put them all to pasture, because he says it's a coup, and I believe it is. I really do, because Epstein was supposedly murdered now, and these people, Glenn Beck was doing a documentary on that, the Ukrainian stuff, and Biden and Obama and Hunter, and they were doing some dirty stuff over there, according to the stuff that Beck is saying. So they're speeding it up to keep Trump quiet so they can get him impeached before he says anything. So he's going to sacrifice a lot of those people. All those people are going to get really sacrificed when it's all said and done, because if Beck knows this stuff, he knows it.
Mhm.
And they got proof of it. So I'm just waiting for the hammer to drop.
Yeah.
Really waiting for the hammer to drop. And the State Department is being implicated in what's going down. I just heard this video, and I said, So, our government is, our President Obama, Biden, and all them people, and of course I think Pelosi was in office at the time. It's going to be interesting how they're about to shake up this government. It's going to be really bad, and he's probably calling in the military. He will be calling in the military because the Marines are already getting ready for that. So, I mean, it's really good and it's really bad because where are the people in this stuff? Where are we going to be in it, especially our people?
Right. Well, my motto that government was never built for the people. It is a corporation. So,
exactly.
You're seeing hostile takeovers between these families that through bloodlines have been controlling these things for hundreds of years. And so now that the cycle is over for these different corporations, they are infighting because every kingdom that Rome built, because this is still a Roman kingdom, it falls because it's out of step, it's out of natural law. So, hey, it is what it is. So part of it is that. A lot of it is that, and then of course they got to put on a show for the people.
Of course they do.
Keep them distracted from radiation levels rising, the sky turning purple, folks videotaping shit in the sky and ships and all of that. Let's keep them distracted with theater. So, that's what they do.
And you know what? I'm going to say it again. Our people need to stay out of that mess. They really need to stay out of that.
Yeah, because that's a corporation issue. Yeah, indeed, sis. Brother Sean, you have any? Go ahead on with the fuckery for the family.
Do I? I guess the question would be where to start. But I guess I'll just add on to what Sis Sandra was saying. But those trials are about to be public. So the distraction gonna get bigger. But some of it may be worth watching.
Right.
Especially when people's heroes and masters are about to get what they deserve. I mean, this human trafficking is organ stealing. This shit is affecting our people the most.
Right.
And our people spend more energy hating the man who hate that shit too. But, that's a whole different story.
Right.
We don't seem to care about anything that affects us on the whole. And that's fuckery.
I agreed on that for sure.
We expect people who survive off of us to give up their meal ticket and set your black ass up in shop to take everything away from them. I mean, think about that. Think how many lighters y'all done fucking stole and went out your way to make sure you ain't get caught over a fucking lighter. So what you think they gonna do about all this land? and all these resources. They just gonna give it back because you file a piece of paper? Because you vote for somebody? Melanated? All they do is get richer because they're playing a corporate game.
Right.
It's a game. It's Monopoly.
It definitely is.
And they play Monopoly on your ancestral lands while you got your thumb in your ass. Yeah, I say you got your thumb in your ass because you watching reality TV. You running around hating, being distracted. Don't even know who you are. You with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and don't know who you are. That's fuckery.
Indeed.
I digress.
Indeed. Okay, family, here's mine. Go ahead on with the fuckery. It's in regards to the inaccurate historical depiction of Harriet Tubman. So again, I didn't see the movie. I don't fuck with slavery movies. So I knew it was going to be BS out the gate. But I am going to give some content on Miss Tubman. And I am getting this from The Negro Question, Part 6, The 13 Black Colonies by Lee Cummings. This is on page 147. Let me make sure. Because I marked this. Yes, it is. I'm accurate, goddammit. This is on page 147 of the book. All right, so in this, he is talking about the black nobility and how they made it over to the Americas when all the fighting broke out over in Europe and folks were being overthrown off of those particular thrones. So what this brother did, he simply, as I tell people always, you go to the records to find your folks, right? So that's what he did throughout this entire book, plus other particular research. So he says, blacks rescued by Harriet Tubman with last name Stewart, right? Now, Stewart, as I've said, is King James's mother's name. So again, anyone melanated with the last name Stewart, any derivative or variation, meaning of that spelling, your lineage ties back to King James, melanated king of Europe and Scotland, and also the one who authored and commissioned the writing of the Holy Bible, and also authored and commissioned the writing of Demonology. Folks don't even know that. So here we go. He pulled this off of a ship manifest. He says, I went back on the timeline and pulled up the list of men, women, and children that Harriet Tubman Ross Stewart rescued from the South. I almost fell out of my chair when I saw the last name Ross and Stewart on the list of rescued people. Then I took a look at Harriet Tubman's parents' names, and I saw the names Ross and Stewart. I immediately ran to the map and saw Ross and Stewart in the Highlands of Scotland. I reread the writings of the European witnesses, and he gives the page numbers of this book. The stewards on the ship's manifest are black. The images of the steward kings are black, and the stewards that Harriet Tubman rescued from the South were black. Are you smarter than a fifth grader? The math says that the black stewards that Harriet Tubman Stewart rescued from the South were in fact the seed of King James Stewart. What was Harriet Tubman Ross Stewart really doing in the South? This woman was rescuing the royal seed of the kings called Stewart. I'm reading it wrong. The seeds of the black Highlanders, plain and simple. Ross was one of the titles that the kings of Stewart held in Scotland. There is a document on pages 35, 36, 37, and 38 of this book that is titled The Oath of Aberbroth. The document mentions the Earl of Ross and Walter Stewart. The document is dated 1320 AD, which is an indication of how old these names are, and it disputes the argument of this modern scholar that the black Scots took on the name of their so-called slave masters. It appears that the whites took on the last names and titles of the deported blacks to lay claim to their land and inheritance. The seed of the black royals of Europe have been scattered into the four winds of heaven. It is written, this is the people that have been robbed and spoiled. This scripture is pointing to this generation. Also, look at the map showing the Scottish Highlanders, and the name Ross is there. Are you a free-thinking human being? Can you think for yourself? What are the odds that Harriet Tubman and her family would be named Ross Stewart? The plot thickens when Harriet Tubman Ross Stewart rescues a black man from slavery named William Henry Stewart. It is important to note that this man's lineal name appears on different ship manifests as a political prisoner. The name William Stewart can be found on the convict ship Hockenhill and the ship York. This simply proves that the Stewart royals were being rounded up and deported into the colonies as convicts. What was their crime? They believed in the divine right of kings to rule, and they tried to restore the black stewards to the throne of three kingdoms. Are you still there? Let's play the game conspiracy theory. What are the odds that the same name, William Henry Stewart, appears as Secretary of State in the administration of Abraham Lincoln? Think about this. Harriet Tubman Stewart rescues a man with the name William Henry Stewart in 1854. And 11 years later, this same name appears as Secretary of State of the United States, minus the T in Stewart. What are the odds? Are you still there? So, just real quick on the rescue, the names of folks that Harriet Tubman rescued: John Stewart, William Henry Stewart, Catherine Stewart, Harriet Ann Stewart, William Henry Ross, Margaret Stewart, Anne Marie Stewart, Amelia Millie Hollis Stewart, James Stewart, Benjamin Ross, Moses Ross, George Ross, Robert Ben Ross, Henry Stewart, Catherine Kane Stewart, John Isaac Ross Stewart, the parents of Harriet Tubman, Benjamin Ross Stewart, Harriet Ross Rita Stewart.
Stewart. And so the last part, the same day that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, the entire family of black stewards / Seawards, so that's another derivative of Stewart family, is Seaward, Sewards. I'm sorry, Seward, was savage. Okay, the same day that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, the entire family of black stewards / Seawards was savagely attacked by an assassin by the name of Lewis Powell, a 20-year-old Confederate soldier. Powell / Secretary of State William Henry Seward, Assistant Secretary of State Frederick Augustus Seward, and his daughter, but they all lived. It was a hit on the entire administration. There is another intriguing element to this story that cannot be dismissed. When Harriet Ross Tubman and her family made it to Canada, they dropped the last name Ross and assumed the title Stewart. So the king side of the name. This can't be a coincidence. Check out the names: James Stewart, William Henry Stewart, and her family being the royal seed of King James Stewart. This means that Harriet Tubman Stewart and her family are the direct descendants of Prince Zahara of the House of Judah. Are you still there? Because I have a greater witness than this. So I'm not going to go into the other one. You can certainly read on. He gets into how they tie back to William the Conqueror. So again, this information is from the Negro Question, Part 6, The 13 Black Colonies by Lee Cummings. On page 147, he tells you who Harriet Tubman was rescuing and why she was doing it. So my go ahead on with the fuckery is this depiction of the slavery movies that has absolutely nothing to do with the actual historical facts. Yes, Purple Pill, Dublin. Yeah, Dublin means black. That's what Dublin means, black. So yes, absolutely. All righty. All right, so I'll pause in case Sister Brother Sean, you want to put something on it. Or not. Sorry, I was taking a sip of water. All right, we're going to move on. I'm going to pick up with, forgive me, family. They were white, and they were the untold history of the enslavement of whites in early America. This is by Michael A. Hoffman II, because we didn't get to read any of his stuff last week. So I'm on page 12, and it says, of the fact that the wealth of Barbados was founded on the backs of white slave labor, there can be no doubt. White slave laborers from Britain and Ireland were the mainstay of the sugar colonies until the mid-1640s. There were few blacks in Barbados. George Downing wrote to John Winthrop, the colonial governor of Massachusetts in 1645, that planters who wanted to make a fortune in the British West Indies must procure white slave labor out of England if they wanted to succeed. White indentured servants were employed and treated incidentally exactly like slaves. The many graduation of unfreedom among whites made it difficult to draw fast lanes between any idealized free white workers and pitied or scorned servile black workers in work of slaves and that of white servants were virtually interchangeable in most areas. And so he's quoting just different sources, these things that I am reading back to you. So it says, in the Massachusetts Court of Assistants, whose records date to 1633, we find a 1638 description of a white man, one Giles Player, as having been delivered up for a slave. The Englishman William Edis, after observing white slaves in America in 1770, wrote, generally speaking, they groan beneath a worse than Egyptian bondage. Governor Sharp of the Maryland colony compared the property interests of the planters and their white slaves with the estate of an English farmer consisting of a multitude of cattle. So before I go on, I just want to note that this Englishman wrote this in 1770. He's talking about indentured servants, indentured white servants, or white slaves. And so now 6 years later, the whole 1776 thing, something ain't adding up.
Yeah, it's not. I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, sis.
My observation is they're saying blacks. That's the word they used, blacks. But they were here under Columbus in 1492, and they came over here and started enslaving the American Indian. And they shipped them to the islands. You can see it right now. Those people there are from here. And they shipped them out of the East. So what's this black separation? And they call us black now, of course. So what are they really talking about?
Now, it's interesting because as I'm reading both of these books, and even with Brother Lee Cummings, you're going to notice them speak of people in a couple of categories. They're going to talk about the freed man, and usually when they talk about the freed man or free man, they're talking about the European, quote, quote, melanated / blacks who became free. Or never were slaves in the start. So they had their motherfucking paperwork stating as such. And then they talk about either the Indians, which are going to represent the indigenous melanated folks. Some would even say the dark Indians or the black Indians, or they would just use the term Indian. And sometimes the Indians would be categorized as slaves and or captured or whatever, or freed. And then sometimes you'll hear them talk about the black workers, so meaning the blacks who had contracts to work on farms. And then you hear them talk about the indentured servants, which always indicated that those were white folks, okay? So, and then the other last term is African. So that tells you quite clearly that they know who was who between melanated people. They knew clearly who was who. And based on the research that we've been doing, we see that, and even Benjamin Franklin said out of his own mouth that everywhere he turned, it was black folks. Because his argument back to the thrones over in Europe, he did not want them importing any African slaves. Because everywhere he looked, we already had a bunch of black folks. And as we get through this series, you're going to see these folks that they are calling the founding fathers, who are Caucasian. Really, they were trying to get their particular people to come up. Okay, they wanted their people to start holding these titles of nobility. And start to become landowners. Okay, and we'll start to see that in this. So the African on the land, it was very, very, very few of them. So when you're reading these texts, you kind of have to pay attention in the content that they are saying black, in the content that they are saying freedman, in a content that they are saying Indian. Okay, and then of course you know what African means. But in all of these eyewitness accounts during these time frames, they knew who was who. So it is really, really fucking sad today that folks all of a sudden, everybody's African. Oh, okay. Okay. When that's further from the truth. It's really the reverse. Most people in the Americas don't have that African lineage in their blood. They're either indigenous to the land or they are from Europe. They are indigenous to Europe. And most, if you trace your bloodline, you're going to see you have a mixture of both. One side of the bloodline would be indigenous to the Americas. The other side would be indigenous to Europe, which would make sense because that adds up, the numbers add up to the census record of the Americas and the census record of Europe. Because even with those African slaves, that stuff had to be documented. It had to be accounted for the purpose of taxes. So it's no excuse for folks running around here saying they don't know. Do the research. It's your responsibility to do the research on your lineage and not allow anyone to tell you who the hell you are. All right. So sorry about that. I know I kind of went on. But I just had to bring that full circle. So we go, a white man, la, la, la. Okay. The Quock Walker case in Massachusetts in 1783 ruled that slavery was contrary to the state constitution, was applied equally to blacks and whites in Massachusetts. All right, so there you go, 1783. But I thought everybody all of the slaves came from Africa, and the white folks were over it. Oh, okay then. Patrick F. Moran, in his historical sketch of the persecution suffered by the Catholics of Ireland, referred to the transportation of the Irish to the colonies as the slave trade. Okay, so now just to back it up a little bit here, we know that the Catholic and the Protestants, because I think King James was a Protestant, if I'm not mistaken, they were clashing with those different kingdoms, and King James didn't want anything to do with the Catholic Church, and so the Catholic Church started taking over and overthrowing those particular kingdoms. But before that, let's be clear, before King James and them had got overthrown, or the Stuarts got overthrown, white slavery was already in play on the land. It was already in play. So when Spain hit the scene, because Christopher Columbus, quote, quote, he represents the Spanish kingdom, that was like on the west coast, per se, over in Mexico. But when England them got involved, England and Ireland and them got involved, and I want to even say France, of wanting to come over to the Americas to start colonizing the land. And let's be clear, these are black nobility that colonized the Americas. It was not white folks, because they did not hold the seat of power. So when the European black nobility decide to colonize the land, the first indentured servants were white. So all of your founding fathers held some type of worker contract. They did not come over here as nobility, and even some of them were slaves until their contract was up. All right. So the disciplinary and revenue laws of early Virginia, 1631 to 1645, did not discriminate Negroes in bondage from whites in bondage. He gives the source for that, William Henning, Statutes at Large of Virginia. For records of wills in which lands, goods, and chattels, cattle, monies, Negroes, English servants, horses, sheep, and household stuff were all sold together. See the Lancaster County Records in Virginia, Colonial Abstract, Beverly Fleet editor. So what was going on as the wars, the Indian Wars, were breaking out in the Americas, because you had some Indian tribes that had partnered with the black nobility of Europe to do commerce, specifically in the eastern coast. So you had New Jersey, New York. Have to check and see if Boston was involved in it, but we know Virginia had all had commerce contracts to do business on their land with the different black nobility kingdoms. So on the west coast part, you had Spain and them wanting to expand to keep taking over more territory as well. So in addition, wars broke out because not all of our ancestors, those that are indigenous to the Americas, agreed with doing commerce on the land in that, because one of the most profitable commerce was fur. Okay, so in indigenous traditions, that was against nature to kill an animal just to be killing an animal. You're supposed to be doing it for some type of purpose within the land. Okay, so for the purpose of the land or feeding yourself, your family, etc., etc., not for exchanging motherfucking shiny objects. So war broke out in the same territories among the tribes and within the same tribes. And so people were taken captive and, quote, quote, made slaves, but they were really prisoners of war. All right, so that's where the term slavery of the Negro was put on our ancestors, okay? So before the white man ever came in power, let's be clear, the war broke out on the land between melanated on melanated within the same tribe, with different tribes, and with the melanated nobility of Europe and the different tribes, okay? But among that time frame, the white folks on the land were the first slaves. All right. Okay. I'm just going to go down a little bit. And a statement smuggled out of the New World and published in London, whites in bondage did not call themselves indentured servants. In their writings, they referred to themselves as English slaves and English merchandise. And so he gives a reference to English slavery, and that book was out in 1659. Eyewitnesses like Pete Labat, who visited the West Indies slave plantation of the 17th century, which were built and manned by white slaves, labeled them white slaves and nothing less. So that was his memoirs back from 1693 to 1705. Even blacks referred to the white forced labor in the colonies as white slaves. Colonial Office, Public Records Office, London, 1667. All right, the height of academic and media fraud is revealed in the monopolistic trademark status of the official controllers of education and mass communications have successfully established between the definition of the word slave and the Negro, while labeling descriptions of the historic experience of whites in slavery as fallacy. Yet the very word slave, which the establishment's consensus school of history pretend cannot legitimately be applied to whites, is derived from the word Slav. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word slave is another name for the white people of Eastern Europe, the Slavs. Compact edition of the Oxford English Dictionary. All right. In other words, slave has always been a term for and a definition of severe conditions of white people. So I'm going to say that again. In other words, slave has always been a term for and a definition of the severe condition of white people. Yet, we are told by the professorcrats that it is not correct to refer to whites as slaves, but only as servants, even though the very root of the word is derived from the historical fact of white slavery. So I'm going to pause in case y'all want to put something on it. So
yep. Definitely. No. I really don't know how much clearer that makes it as far as who the Africans are, who the slaves are, what part our people played in it. It was the brutish Moors.
Yep.
The Brits who we were fighting. They were called the brutish Moors because they were so brutal in the way that they fought.
Right. Right.
But
Indeed.
our people want to claim both histories.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be the conquering Moors, and they want to be the slaves. I mean, either way has negative karma attached
Yes, it
to
does.
it.
Attached to it. That's right.
I mean,
That's
the fact that people still want to be kings and to rule. To be a king and to rule, you have to have subjects.
Yep.
So what does that mean for everybody else?
Right.
And to keep that covenant going that the demiurge has programmed them for, all that means is that y'all want to continue killing, colonizing, and ruling.
Exactly.
Just in another system.
Just in another system. You just want to be back rulers over the fucked up shit that happened before. And in actuality, you are supposed to be breaking the generational curses that if your bloodline participated in any form of holding people in bondage or setting up these systems based off of ciphering someone's energy and going against nature, you're supposed to be reversing all of that through your bloodline to stop the karmatic curse and debt that has to be paid when you go against nature. And me personally, I want to say for myself and anyone associated with my bloodline that I sincerely and truly apologize if my ancestors in any way enslaved anyone. I don't give a fuck what color it was. None of that shit. It's wrong. It's against natural law. And I'm not rocking with that bullshit. I don't want no part of it. It stops right here, right now, with my bloodline. So I don't care if they were melanated. I don't give a shit if they were Caucasian, white. I sincerely apologize if my ancestors participated in any of it. It's wrong. It's against natural order. I am here to stop the curse of my bloodline and set the record straight. We are supposed to be the caretakers of the planet. Everything we need is provided to us by the earth, Mother Earth, naturally. There is no need to build these systems around scarcity and set people up on kingdoms to cipher out natural resources that are ours inherently through our birthright. So, all right, I'll pause in case y'all want to put some more on it.
People don't seem to get that
Well,
our inheritance isn't to be wealthy, not in a material way.
No.
You're inheriting a way of being and a way to be able to sustain that. You got everything that you need provided for you freely.
Yep.
All you have to do is protect it and do what you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
But I guess that's too difficult.
Sorry, go ahead, sis.
Well, I'm trying to clarify something in my mind. You're talking about these Brits that took over, the melanated Brits, Romans, that took over the 13 colonies. But there was more than Great Britain over in Europe at that time. And that part of it, I know the Irish went down, the Germans went down, the black or melanated Germans and Irish went down. They were all over Europe. So now, when you look at the original origin of our people, they all came from here. They all came from here. And I'm just trying to kind of, I know the Brits have always been brutal. They did each other in, and then they sent their people to Australia to work those sugarcane places as well. So, but we did have quite a few people from here go over there. So those are the ones I'm thinking that you're saying that the Brits also took down. When you were talking about how and they are Hebrews, James's people, because they would be from the same bloodline as the rest of them. But they were just brutal to each other, if I'm not misunderstanding correctly. Even for the ones in Europe and the ones over here. They were brutal to everybody. It was just another sect of Hebrews who did all that stuff. And they would have the records for the Bible as well, because it's only one bloodline that kept the records.
Right.
The Canaanite, and stuff like that. So James is another branch of the Hebrews, and he was the brutal part, the one that did not get the inheritance but took it by force. Now, this is what my mind is picking up, because I think I've always been on a different page with you as far as them being the original anything, And I always said they were, and you said no. So now I'm hearing what you're saying, because they occupied the 12 and 13 colonies. That's where they stopped. And then they brought, because George owned one of the states, I think it was Virginia. No, James owned Virginia. And George owned...
Damn, I can't remember which one George did. I know Charles was South Carolina, or the Carolina.
Yeah, and so what they did was, I was reading another book or something where the white governor was, remember I was telling you where they was conquering in the name of Jesus, and it was fair to do that? They were, because we only had 2,000 Africans come here. Only 2,000.
Right.
But
right. Instead of the 12 motherfucking million they say. But yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the colonies was basically white slaves. And the few that have the power to put them in slavery was the ones that the melanated kings put in power over here to take care of their affairs.
Agreed. Now say that again, sis. Say that again, because I want people to...
I said they only took the 12 and 13 colonies. And George and Charles and James owned different ones of those states. And the people they brought over here, this is what I'm getting, are the white ones. They wanted to run those states for their benefit. And they brought them over.
Now let's just kind of put it in perspective. Even with that though, in they motherfucking defense a tad little bit, because even the whites back then were not coming over to the colonies running shit.
No, they weren't.
Because they did not have those titles. They didn't have no clout. So most of them came over under either work contracts, indentured, quote, quote, servant. So they had lower positions. The folks that were coming over here that was running shit was the black nobility boys in them, which was still melanated folks.
Well, yeah, they could have been that 2,000 melanated Africans they brought, right? That's a possibility.
I don't know about that. I think that these were people out of their families or people that were in their court. Because, you know, and it's just like today if you think about it. You have these people in the entertainment industry got to have all of their motherfucking posse around them, they boys in them. So they put their boys in them on. So it's the same concept. So they're taking folks from out of their court, their melanated boys in them, setting up shop. The white people were used for laborers. Okay, so as the fighting continued, so meaning as James and them was being overthrown, that's when the white folks started getting their opportunity to step into the position to run these particular plantations. But out of the gate, they did not hold that type of power.
Power at all. And you know, they didn't even push west into Indian territory until later, because the Indians were very hostile to them. And so,
remember, because the ancestors on the East Coast started doing motherfucking commerce, that's why the East was colonized. That's why it's the 13 black colonies, because they were first. And then in the South was like, no, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. So the South indigenous folks fought a long time, because first they fought the Spanish, told them get the fuck out of here. Melanated, by the way. Then the French and them tried to motherfucking shit. They said get the fuck on out of here. And then the Brits came into play, trying to take over the South, because remember, they only had those 13 colonies. So it took them quite some time to get the South.
Yeah, because the Spanish took over Texas, and the French took over Louisiana.
Right.
So all of these Europeans came over here and started taking over the colonies from the melanated ones when they came. But yeah, so James is just a branch. James is not the start of anything. He's just a branch.
No. Yeah, because it was all of the black nobility families, let's be clear, coming to the quote new world. Riches. So that's how they came. They set up corporations. That's why none of this shit impresses me goddamn today. We're talking about the United States government corporation, because I enter and understand how this shit was set up. They came over here through corporations, issuing charters to do business on the land.
Right.
It's always been commerce with them.
Well, you know,
go ahead.
I was thinking, you know, way back in that demonology, James was calling himself, what's it, Joseph? You know, that was his nickname, and that's what it means. But that really wasn't his name, but that's what he was, implying in that book. Maybe he wanted to be, I'm looking at it differently because there was millions of us over here before they got here, millions. Just
absolutely.
A few millions. And so when they took that 13 colonies, and of course the Iroquois entered into commerce with them.
Yeah. That was that started with the Iroquois and the Wampanoag. That started with them. That had the deals with the black nobility. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the Lenape. So, so James called himself that, but it doesn't seem like he is that, even though he called himself that in that demonology book.
Because it's of Jacob.
Yeah, he sure did. He called himself Jacob in Lee Cummings' information, but right. Jacob. Yeah.
So he's just a branch of the Hebrew, not the main branch.
Well, again, I don't know what motherfucking branch he was.
I understand what you're saying.
We just know what dude is repping, and he's repping his gang as Hebrew, that he's Jacob, and he also said that he's a Roman. So I'm only going by what the fuck old boy said.
They all try to steal the crown, as you say. They all wanted to be the ruler and the top dog in all religions and everything. So I'm just thinking that he was using that as what he felt that he had the title to, which he didn't. So now I understand the difference, because I'm mixing up the originals with the so-called Roman that came over here in the name of King James.
I see what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah.
It makes. Yeah, I don't know how they're switching identities with that Hebrew stuff. That's on them. That's a fucking mess.
But no, I'm saying he is probably a Hebrew, because there were many sons. There was 12 sons.
He probably is.
He's probably one of them, because Gad was the Indians. That's what they said. When they broke down the titles of Judah and all that kind of stuff, and Gad and, I can't even remember the tribes right now. We all were Hebrews, but James was a branch, and he wanted to be the man. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking I'm getting.
No, it makes total sense what you're saying. Total sense. Purple Pill, shout out to Purple Pill in the chat room, and shout out to the other folks in the chat room. I send you peace and love. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, sir.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
The thing is, though, there were thousands of tribes here.
Exactly.
Those 13 families, those 13 bloodlines were the conquerors.
Yep.
I just don't get why people can understand the fact that everybody was melanated and the crimes began melanated or melanated.
Exactly.
But, I agree. I agree, but I'm not.
But nobody is the villain.
Right.
Because, this guy is still being held in high regard.
Exactly.
Irregardless of what he did and what his scriptures have done.
Yep. But see, what I'm saying is,
people talk about him like he's some type of hero. I'm not saying that you did. I'm saying people
You're just saying in general.
Because they swear by the King James Version of the Bible.
That's all,
That's what they don't argue you down with, slap you upside your head with, all type of stuff. The King James Version of the Bible.
What I'm saying, though, brother, is that King James is one of the part of that tribe of 13, because Charles and George and all those people are all related. As
I understand that. I acknowledge that at first. I said those are just 13 bloodlines, but there were thousands of tribes.
But one head. That's what I'm saying. They were just all one head, because Charles II, Charles I, and all them kind of people were James's relatives, blood relatives out of his loins.
Indeed. That's indeed. What I'm saying. I'm going to say again, they were conquerors.
Yeah, they were.
I'm only going by they motherfucking version of they shit that they put out. Rhonda ain't making it. All you got to do is turn to their book of reference, the Bible, and they said that their God told them to go take people's shit.
Yeah, I would.
And that's what they did. They were conquerors. I mean, and the fact of it is that if you trace your lineage and your lineage is a part of that, that's on you how you want to identify. Now, I'm just saying for me personally, knowing that part of my heritage traces back to Europe and the other part is indigenous to the Americas, I'm not fucking with none of that conqueror shit.
Well, but what I'm saying, the people they took down, the Welsh, the Irish, the Germans, they were also Hebrews, and they were also melanated. James Ken took them out. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we know exactly what you're saying, and we're in agreement with you.
That's what I'm saying. Mhm. And I don't know if James God told him to do it or not. That's what he said. But because he was not a good person to his own kin. To cousins and outside, like mother and son. Two different mothers and two different fathers. So that's one branch. Two branches right there. But that's what I'm saying. James took down his own kin in Europe. That's what they did, as far as I can understand what you're saying.
Gotcha. I'm sorry, Brother Sean, what you say?
None of that was in debate. The thing is, a lot of us are descendants of those other bloodlines that these motherfuckers stepped on.
Exactly. That's what I'm. This is what I'm finally picking up is what you're saying, that they took down their own kin in Europe and then marched over here.
Exactly. That's all I've been saying since we did the Black Nobility series. That's exactly what I'm saying. Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But also,
exactly what I'm saying. I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Just like the Moors try and say that everybody on the fucking planet is Moors.
Get the fuck out of here.
Like you trying to say that everybody is Hebrews, and everybody is not. This was not planet Hebrew. It was not planet Moor at no time. If the rest of us are of a different bloodline, then we're not Hebrews. That's all I'm saying. I'm tired of being lumped into certain categories. I'm not a Hebrew. I'm not a Moor. I'm not an African. I'm not black. I'm not a Negro. I'm none of that shit. I just don't want to be lumped in nothing. Anybody and everybody can be who or what they want to be.
Indeed.
But I'm not part of that we.
Indeed. I enter and overstand, brother. I enter and overstand. And again, I know for me personally, I know, part of my bloodline traces to that European side. Part is indigenous. So I'm the product of both of that. And again, I say I'm not with that fuck shit. I'm not repping the Hebrew side, the kingship, the shit was wrong. And I'm not in agreement with any of it. So that's just me, because the bottom line is you had folks calling themselves Hebrews, were fighting among each other, and then turned around and went across the planet and conquered other indigenous folks on their land. They took their shit. And they specifically make distinctions between who's indigenous, who's native. So even they knew the separate bloodline. So, yeah, your point is very well taken, Brother Sean. Very well taken. All right, so here we go. Oh, damn, Purple Pill had dropped a couple of things. Let me go back. Damn, Purple Pill, you've been dropping so much. The 13 colonies were the first U.S. corporation. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Exactly. That's true.
So.
I agree.
Yeah. He says, Purple Pill goes, did you know in some African nations, if they catch you wearing a fez, that could lead to a beat down, trying to tell you? Yeah, absolutely, because bearing that fez were over there conquering and slaughtering.
They're shooting them down like dogs.
People of those lands, so they ain't got that motherfucking shit. They ain't forgot it.
Mm-mm. Mussolini.
Just like the Moors came over, let's be clear, the Moors came over, and what did they say? They ruled Spain for 700 years. You fucking conquered Spain, the indigenous people, melanated people, for 700 years. So these are the games that have been played among melanated people, mixing shit up with titles and romanticizing the shit instead of telling the truth. That's why nothing that are done using these titles and using these things come to any fruition. Because you have karmic debt attached to it. So that's why I always say, tell the truth. Know who you are. When you are branding these titles onto yourself, you take on all of the associated karmic, spiritual debt that is associated with it. And if you are a part of those bloodlines who was involved with the fuckery, you are supposed to be denouncing that fuckery to break the curses, not adding more motherfucking titles onto yourself. So, all right, here we go. We go, a Holocaust against the white poor. White slavery and bondage in British colonial America. Now notice, he said British colonial America cannot be fully understood without also understanding how British whites came to be dehumanized in their homeland across the sea. The desperate conditions of the poor whites of Britain was most obvious in the cities. The English slums of the 17th, 18th, and 19th century were pits of white suffering. So I'm going to stop. This already tells you, just by that one sentence, the fallacy of millions of African slaves and of white folks being on top in Europe. He is giving you hundreds of years of whites suffering in English slums. 17th. 18th. Wasn't slavery abolished, quote, quote, in the Americas in the 18th and 19th centuries were pits of white suffering? I told you all when we were doing the Black Nobility series that the whites did not come into power in the European thrones and totally in the Americas until the late 1800s, early 1900s. And he is once again telling you the English slums of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries were pits of white suffering. London St. Giles was known locally as Rat's Castle. A policeman who worked the area used metaphors from the insect world to describe the conditions of the poor whites there, referring to them as vermin-hunted heaps of rags. Opening the door to a tiny shack, the policeman discovered 10, 20, 30, who can count them, men, women, and children, for the most part, naked, heaped upon the floor like maggots. In a cheese, a spectral rising, unshrouded from graves of rags. So he's quoting a quote off of On Duty with Inspector Field from 1851. Herman Melville, in his autobiographical account of his first voyage as a sailor, described the same living death in English port city of Liverpool in 1839. So they are essentially describing the ghettos of Europe filled by white folks. All right. Okay, and so I'm on page 16. They were white and they were slaves. The Untold History of Enslavement of Whites in Early America by Michael A. Hoffman II. Such is the course of 19 out of 20 of the fatal cases originating in deficiency of food as they occurred among the destitute poor in our large towns, the first effect of the gradual starvation to which these persons are subjected. It is a strange anomaly to see in wealthy, civilized Christian England multitudes of men living in the lowest state of physical degradation and absolutely perishing from neglect. The fact is undeniable that no inconsiderable portion of our fellow creatures is living on food and indwelling scarcely fit for brutes, certainly worse provided for than many of our domestic animals, and that the death of numbers is accelerated or indirectly produced by gradual and protracted starvation. So that was from another source called Distress in Manchester. Charles Darwin's uncle, factory owner Josiah Wedgwood, owned a business that worked white children of 5 years of age in a chemical factory permeated with lead oxide, a deadly poison. Wedgwood acknowledged that the lead made the children very subject to disease, but worked them anyway. So I'll pause. I'm going to get a drink of water in case somebody wanted to put something on it.
Yeah. I mean, to see his story being played out over and over again, more mentally than anything.
It is mental.
Our people have been taught a history in reverse. And because of what somebody else said, look at the psychological trauma that our people take themselves through in reference to this. And nothing happened the way that they were taught that it happened.
Nope.
And from that mental perspective that's been programmed and ingrained into our people, they are elated at the fact of making another group of beings suffer again, not realizing that that's the reason that we're suffering now.
Now, exactly.
But even through all of this, our people have never stopped fighting each other. I mean, people talk about the Anunnaki and all these other alien races. Quote unquote, niggas don't give a fuck who on this planet. A nigga still gonna find another nigga to fight. Another nigga to steal from, another nigga to kill. But everything else can come to your home and have its way. And you got more hatred for yourself.
Right.
I mean, if they don't belong here, which we already know they don't,
right.
Mama gonna take care of it.
Right.
The things we should have did, we didn't. And now all the time is spent trying to heal for those that want to heal.
Right.
But y'all want to keep this illusion going. Why?
Yep.
What does it benefit you? I mean, knowing the truth, don't you know that any quote-unquote reparations is due to them?
Yep. I was trying to hit the black nobility. Yep, you're right.
And for those of us that have bloodlines that extend both shores, you got double the karma.
Exactly.
Because before the ancestors from over there came here, they fucked up everything there before they came here.
They sure did. That's why they was bringing their rag glasses over here. Exactly.
So, to me, just because some of them could be in my bloodline, I don't know if it was by rape or why it was consented to.
Right.
But if I'm the product of a rape, it don't mean I got to acknowledge that ignorant motherfucker.
Indeed.
You don't have to acknowledge the ignorance and hold on to it, thinking that to be on top again is going to make everything go right.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody supposed to be on top. If you want to be the king of something, be the king of your bloodline.
Yep.
The heirs that you produce.
Exactly.
The very children that you produce are the ones that you sire.
I know that's right.
That's who you govern over. That's who you control. That's who you master.
Exactly.
I'm done.
All right. Indeed, brother. All right. So here we go. All right. In 1723, the Waltham Act was passed, which classified more than 200 minor offenses, such as stealing a rabbit from an aristocrat or breaking up his fish pond, a crime punishable by hanging. Starving youths, 14 years old, were strung up on Tyburn gallows for stealing as little as one sheep. When their bodies were cut down, their parents had to fight over them with agents of the Royal College of Physicians who had been empowered by the courts to use their remains for laboratory dissection. All right, so I'm going to pause and sip on my motherfucking water. Now, do we not have today in the Americas a system of the prison pipeline who's doing some of the same things, locking people up for very minute crimes, specifically melanated people, and folks come up dead from these police or slave catchers, and organs are being harvested, melanated organs on the black market? Or am I just making that shit up? Yeah, we do. Okay, so when we say the term nothing is new under the sun, that's what the fuck it means. So none of this shit is new. All right, the English historian William Kmetic stated in 1836, the starving agricultural laborers of southern England are worse off than American Negroes. When in 1834, English farm workers in Dorset tried to form a union in order to preserve ourselves, our wives, and our children from starvation, here you go, sis, they were shipped into slavery in Australia for this crime. The situation of white factory workers was no better, Robert Owen declared in 1840. The working classes of Great Britain are in a worse condition than any slave in any country in any period of the world's history. So I just want to point out that according to William Kmetic in 1836, the starving agricultural labor of southern England are far worse off than the American Negro. He didn't say the motherfucking African goddamn slave. He didn't even say the Negro slave. He said the laborers. And this was in 1836. So just pointing those little things out. Okay, we're going to pause right here on that one to get back in the other one. If you all want to join the conversation, just press *1 to get in the queue. So now we're going to move to, family. White Trash, the 400-year Untold History in Class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. Let me see where we left off here. All right, 36. We left off on 36. All right, bear with me here, family. And just to refresh your memory of where we left off, because we started talking about population control. On 34, the author, Nancy Eisenberg, literally started talking about population control, so meaning how the colonies were monitoring the birth rates of the white Slavs and or indentured servants, or however the hell you want to say it, on how many children they were having, and if they weren't being productive, then they went in to control how many children they were having. So let me go to Brother 832 before we pick back up with that. your line is open.
Roger!
There you are. Hey, brother.
Sandra! My sisters from other vistas. Feathers up!
Feathers up.
Feathers up, brother.
The United Snakes of America down.
Hey, wait a minute.
My brother from another mother sitting on Mount Olympus throwing them black lightning bolts down tonight.
Indeed, bro.
You know, there was someone who advised me last week to review the content and the playback. Okay? Let me, before I speak.
Oh, Lord.
Hear ye, all Negropeans, black Caucasians, and white Africans. A public service announcement. Take your DNA test, your archaeological and anthropological studies, and pack your shit up back to Africa. Okay? I am sick and tired of people trying to imply, project, or put upon us that this is somehow shit that came from us being brought back to us. Are you feeling me, sister?
I feel you.
I mean,
I feel you.
This shit sounds not. Maybe I'll put it this way: Hatfields and McCoys. Okay. So you have black Africans and white Europeans coming in my house, tearing up my shit, and telling me they got a beef. Well, who's the beef with, Rhonda? who is the beef with? You know, and then they're going to try. Now, see, after 400 years now, this is very interesting. You know, you're probably going to pick back up and circle this because this is the untold 400-year history of class in America called white trash, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now
yes, sir.
We're being told by the 1619 Project and the New York Times that our history begins in 1619. Is that not what we're being told?
Yeah, that's
okay.
what they're trying to tell, exactly.
And then trying to imply that where is the indigenous aboriginal? Either exterminated or a mongoloid hybrid fraud.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is it? You know, see, this is what, and I could care less about what other discussions there are about the DNA test proving the cradle of civilization. You know, Sean, you've said this before. Maybe can you find my good brother Wendell again so we can go back and do the bullet points of the Lost Book of Inca? You know, so now when these people and all of the things that you pointed out in ancient maps and how they have been creating and distorting and they got all this stuff in hooked up in a lab, are we going to throw the big-headed scientist Yakub in the mix here that supposedly authored and created these, what are they? Genetic recessive accidents of science or nature? Which is it? But again, this stuff is over in Africa.
It is.
On the time continuum, please explain this to me. Where do they come in comparison to the antiquity of North, Central, South America? I'll point out this one. Now, we know, Sean has already said that there was thousands of untold, quote-unquote, Aboriginal American Indian tribes. But let's just deal with one, or we could use two, but one, possibly three. Olmecs, Choctaw, And what are we supposed to understand the Washita to be? Aren't all three of them making references to mound builders?
Yep.
Olmecs were mound builders. Choctaw were mound builders. Washita were mound builders. The Empress has had the United Nations and these Caucasoid demons to state that her tribe, as best they could in recorded history, was the most ancient. Is that not a ruling that's been placed in the United Nations? Did they not then build off of that from the Washita Nation, which, by the way, there are tribes that are older than it. But just for the sake of this conversation, since people tried to make a lot out of what is called paperwork and documentation, okay? These same people then did a United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People, did they not?
Yes, they did.
And then we have an American Declaration of Rights for Indigenous People, right? Declared by who? Did we declare it?
Nope.
Have we yet to declare?
Not
here's
to my
where I'm
knowledge.
pointing this out, Rhonda. Do you know what the basis of fraud is, right? There is no statute of limitation on fraud.
Right.
Until it is declared. Now, I've tried to say this before, and it's again, I'm trying to be clear in what my proclamation tonight I will state again, Negropeans, Black Caucasians, and white Africans, okay? None of which can be used as a designation to describe me and mine and my ancestors. You follow me?
I feel you.
So no matter how long we have been confused, bamboozled, led astray, hornswoggled, misled, and then misidentified, we are still suffering from identity crisis, correct?
Yes.
So now we have this concerted effort to stamp us as created 1619, authenticated 2019.
Yep.
According to who?
Exactly.
And then I'm going to have somebody tell me because they got a piece of paper that's some proof.
Right.
Proof of what? If anything, it's the proof of your theft. If anything, it's the proof of your kidnapping. If anything, it's the proof of your stealing my identity for the minimum of 400 years. And so now, when we come to some resolution, some clarity, some insight, and we start with this generation, understand what I'm saying, Rhonda, tonight, that we start with this generation born from the womb, declaring what? Fraud? Identity theft? Do you know what the number one federal crime is? Not murder, not rape, not sexual harassment.
Identity theft. Yep.
And now the new minority is the gay white male? The gay white male who wants to become a white female?
Oh, wow.
And this is done through what? Paperwork?
Yeah, it is.
Genetic engineering? Destruction of natural existence? And now I'm supposed to be using this as a benchmark to who? I mean, what the fuck, Rhonda? When I tried to speak with some clarity last week, I was trying to be very simple because it doesn't matter who puts it on paper. What are we recording? What is being documented? What is being put into the historical record? Now, we already know the so-called to the victor goes the spoils, right? So history is always written, and the history we are dealing with is the history of criminals. Literally, you're going through it as you are dealing with this particular book and this stuff.
Right.
This whole concept of what is important to white Caucasoid Europeans is the preeminent definition of white supremacy. But here's the kicker. White superiority requires what? Black inferiority.
Inferiority, right.
You have listened before of Taj Tariq Bey go on and on about the original unedited 13th Amendment, right? Section 12, out of the 20 original clauses stated, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I can always go and pull it up, and this is in the congressional record, on paperwork, that those of African descent shall never be citizens of this United States of America Incorporated. Okay? So it matters not how often we argue, how much we present ourselves in litigiousness, court documents, or paperwork, what has already been etched into the original so-called Constitution that is now amended with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And then the 14th Amendment created the corporate United States citizen, right? But we are the aboriginal sovereign, autochthonous descendant of the original inhabitants of this land. What the fuck does that have to do with a piece of paper?
It doesn't.
It doesn't apply to us.
That's why I don't
applying
fuck with it.
This is what
exactly.
John keeps
That's
saying
why
about
I don't personally fuck with it. Yeah.
So when we continue to go chasing our tails like a dog, running in circles, pursuing these documents, pleading with our oppressors to acknowledge our existence, that is what I try to explain is the difference between freedom and liberty. You are giving up your freedom by pursuing this agenda. They have been stealing our identity from the day they invaded our land. They have been lied about who we are and continue to do that because what criminal says, oh, I fucked up and did wrong? Who does that?
Few. Very few.
And then you're going to go argue in their courts with their judges, their lawyers, their magistrates, their slave patrols, because that's what the police force is. That's what the law enforcement is. They have originated as slave patrols from the antebellum South. The Ku Klux Klan is the military wing of the Democrat Party. We actually created the Republican Party. So those, I'm sorry, sister.
I was going to say that again so our people stop voting Democrat all the time. It doesn't really matter.
The Ku Klux Klan and the White Citizens Council are the two infrastructure arms of the Southern one-party rule of the Democrat Party.
That's right.
That's a fact. Everything that was done and dealt with voting, grandfather clause, literacy test, poll tax, count the fucking jelly beans in a jar. Okay? How many grains of rice in a container? You know, this is the type of fantastical shit they did for voter suppression and for us to prove we were some level on equal standing, which is ironic because, that's like saying, do you want to be equal to a cannibal and a mass murderer, Rhonda? Do you want to be equal to any? What is the difference of that historic photo that you see of those strange fruit bodies hanging from the bottom of a bridge and a Trump Nation rally? What's the difference? The date? 1919 or 2019? It's a white lynch mob. What's the difference? The difference is who we still refuse to be. You see? We're still trying to get accepted by who? That's the pursuit of paperwork. The original Declaration of Independence said life, liberty, and not pursuit of happiness. It said pursuit of property.
Yep.
I know both of you know that before it was changed to pursue.
Yep.
Who was the property? Our Aboriginal autochthonous ancestors. That was the pursuit. That was the property. That was what they came here and stole under Dom Diversus, like Sandra says repeatedly. Those documents, when you talk about papal bulls in the thousands, in the 1100s, the 1200s, the 1300s, do you know those were written on human skin?
Right, their backs. Took it off.
Like leather off of a cow? Can I use the term human being to describe someone doing that? Who does a cannibal, right? I think that's the word in the English language, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A cannibal strips and flays the flesh of a human being, right? Then the original ink was the blood, wasn't it, Sandra? Because I know you're the religious scholar of the group here. And unfortunately, I was indoctrinated in Catholicism, so I know a little bit about this stuff. Okay? So these documents are still held in the Vatican, Rhonda. The original
they are.
documents on human flesh.
Right.
And we are bowing to these people? So again, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Negropeans, black Caucasians, and white Africans, take your shit back home and get the fuck out of my house. And I yield.
All right, brother 832. Peace and love. Peace and love. Very powerful drop. I'm coming to you 727, and then I think that's Brother Lex in the queue, 330. So let me go to 727, and then Brother Lex, I'm going to bring you on.
Good evening, Rhonda, Sandra, and Sean. This is Cheryl.
Hey,
your discussion is on.
Sis. Oh, it's so good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Peace and love. I know your discussion is on white trash and indentured servants, and I read some interesting information on Irish indentured servants. And I just wanted to share this with you. These were some ads for runaway indentured servants that were published in the Pennsylvania Gazette, which was one of the United States' most prominent newspapers from 1728, before the time of the American Revolution, until 1800. These were published in Philadelphia from 1728 through 1800. The Pennsylvania Gazette is considered at that time like the New York Times of the 18th century. Now, This is for a runaway indentured servant, August 16, 1750. Runaway on the 12th instant, from Joseph Jackson of London Grove, Chester County, an Irish servant man named William Farrell, of middle stature and brown complexion. Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Had on, when he went away, a striped flannel jacket, a brown sailor's jacket, a pair of coarse trousers, striped drawers, a felt hat, and a checked shirt, his hair cut off. Likewise, ran away with the aforesaid servant, another Irish servant man named Thomas Collard, belonging to Samuel Ramsey of Londonderry in the said county. He is of a dark complexion and is pockmarked, had on a green double-breasted jacket with clear buttons and red lining, black breeches, black wig. His other clothes not certainly known. Whoever takes up and secures the said servants, so that their masters may have them again, shall have £6 reward for both, or £3 for either, and reasonable charges paid by Joseph Jackson or Samuel Ramsey, the Pennsylvania Gazette. These are Irish indentured servants, brown complexion.
So
they were not all indentured servants, I'm finding out, were not pale people.
They weren't.
Now that is interesting. So basically, when folks were coming over from Europe, they also had some of their own, quote, quote.
They look like us.
They brought their own people. So the lands that
Child,
they captured.
I can't with this mess.
So mind-boggling.
It really is.
Because my concept was that that the so-called black people were slaves. The indentured servants were the paler nation. But I'm reading here, and these are Irish people. They were brown complexion.
Mm-hmm.
They were dark people. They weren't slaves. They were indentured servants also.
Yeah, the black Irish, the German Irish, Germans, yeah.
I won't hold you up. I just thought that was interesting, and
very
I
interesting.
you of it.
Well, thanks for sharing, sis. This stuff is
You're
so
welcome.
jumbled up and mixed. It's sickening, to be honest, but it is what it is.
Yes, it is. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Peace and love, sis. Thank you. Great to hear your voice. Thank you, sis Cheryl. So that I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone. So if you have us on speaker, you have to take us off and mute because we're getting double feedback. Thanks. So that was sis Cheryl. Sis contributed. She always contributes heavy to the show. She sends myself and Brother Sean a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And actually, when Giant series, she was the one that hit me to the Giants in America. So that's how we were able to cover both sides of that as well. So shout out to Sis Cheryl. She is truly a researcher, and she brings some powerful information. So there you have it. So once again, this shit is just all the way fucked up. So you have the black Europeans not only sending white folks over as indentured servants, but also brown people over. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hey, Rhonda.
Watch that surprise us. Sorry, go ahead, sis.
When I was talking about the 1,500 freed blacks, those were indentured servant blacks that came over here as well. The ones from Europe to Texas. But they were freed because they were put into indentured servitude and they were shipped to Texas.
Which makes sense because remember when I said earlier as you're reading, there's a distinction of quote, quote, black people. You have the freedman black, and I said that they are from Europe. The Africans, the Negroes, and then the black Indians. So it makes a lot of sense. So there you have it. She pulled the article proving that, and she just sent me the article. So I'm going to bring on Brother Lex. Thank you, Sis Cheryl. Let me bring on Brother Lex. Hold on a second, and I'll read that article later. Thanks, Sis Cheryl.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, shalom, everybody.
Hey, peace and love, brother. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I'm doing just fine.
Good. Now, I haven't forgotten about you. This has been a crazy week. I'll sync up with you behind the scenes.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm actually encouraging that. And with that being said, I just want to I just want to ask a couple of questions, and they might sound like statements, but they're really questions. Because I realize, I'm a guest, and I want to do guestly things, and for guests to be guests, they have to not, put their feet on other people's tables and stuff like that. So, I realize I get excited too, so.
All do.
Yeah, we all do.
Okay, so I just want to ask a couple of questions, if that's fair. And I just wanted to say, you kept bringing up that these books were suggested to you. Can I ask who suggested these books?
The books that we're reading now.
We were white enslaved and all that.
Yeah. Well, Brother 832, actually, he brought that the white trash one up a couple of times, but the other one, they were white and they were slaves. I brought that into play myself.
So I find that, I guess, the most gentlest word I can use, interesting, that a caller brought these books up. Looking into these books, it shows you that the Europeans were black. So, it's not to be rude. That is who just called in 2 calls ago, right? Brother from Olympus Thunderbolt.
Yeah, 832. Mm-hmm.
So the idea of having somebody that knows this real history, bringing up 400 years of our slavery, when these books, we weren't enslaved, were contradicting. So again, having an argument about this, it just doesn't even make sense when this is the person that suggested these books. Yes, they are going back and forth argument that we're enslaved Africans or something of this nature, which presumably that's 100 years that he had when he was on the call. And then again, he statements that their book doesn't matter, but he's the one that brought up all these laws. He's very, very familiar with these laws, but again, from his work doesn't matter. These laws didn't matter. So the creation of independent, more than just drafts to mentality that people doesn't matter. Yeah.
You're breaking up, brother.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's like every other word. I thought it was going to get better, but it's getting worse.
Right.
I can't control that. I'm just a phone user.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm standing in one place. I'm not around or anything.
Okay, okay. Well, they effing with your line because you're breaking up every other word, but that's okay. Go ahead.
And from these books, and as a question, is the European?
What's the question?
Hello?
Yeah, we thought you dropped. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard it go to outside port, and it's in my phone, computer. But no, I think we correct. Again.
Yeah, we literally cannot hear you. It's like every word. Did you want to try to call back in and press *1 and I'll bring you back on to see if you could get another connection?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Call back in. Just *1 so I can see you at the top of the queue. Okay. All right, so Brother Sean or Sis, did you all want to put anything on it before, while Brother Lex is trying to dial back in?
Well, when I was talking about there's 2 lines of the Hebrew, or, several lines of the Hebrew culture, one of the internal questions, problems that they're having on this planet is between Ishmael's seed and Abraham's Isaac. And, that's what they're fighting with over there in the Middle East. And here we are over here fighting with it over here with the Jameses part that came over here to conquer. And it's just an eternal problem with this, who came first, the chicken or the egg?
And my only thing with that, because I am in agreement with Brother Sean on that, because we know, damn, can Brother Lex not get in? He still ain't called back in. But my only issue is, all that fuck shit started over in Africa.
Yeah, it did. Well, at least
again,
called Africa now. You remember Africa was...
what's called Africa now. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Because that was... it's an eternal fight of brother against brother. Everywhere you look, it's always somebody in the same family want to take what you got. They can't wait until you die until they get it. So, some of them just steal it from you. But it's just an eternal fight. And so maybe that's why they maraud and take from, each other, because they can't seem to, get their own, or they're jealous, or whatever the situation is. We have this internal struggle on this planet of one trying to outdo the other.
And I'm gonna. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sis.
No, go ahead. You go ahead. I'm just.
Yeah, and I'm gonna even go a little bit, add on to what you said, and I'm gonna go back to what Brother 832 was alluding to, that it goes deeper than that. Because if you want to bring in the whole Anunnaki story and all of that jazz, it's different bloodlines. And that's the part that we do not want to face. We don't want to admit it. Just because somebody has a brown hue, dark hue, oh, well, we all the same. Oh, okay, then.
No, we're not.
Okay. That's not the case. This is a battle of bloodlines, and it is spiritual. You have an invading bloodline coming through conquering, and the only way that they can survive is ciphering energy. So let me bring back on Brother Lex.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, peace and love. Okay, brother. And I'm like, Dad, can he get back on? Okay.
No, I've been on it. The bars on my phone aren't changing, so I'm not going to fight with it.
You sound a lot better, though.
Yeah, it's better.
All I can say is, for these books to be brought up, for these museums to hold the same evidence that's in these books, these arguments don't make sense. I don't want anybody to agree with me. I want people to think for themselves. If we're the Black European, we ain't been in no 400 years of nothing.
Right.
If slavery.
If you're the Black Indian, then okay, 5 generations of evidence exists. I mean, and these are intelligent books, and this is an intelligent argument that he's presenting. That's not Indian talk. That's actually Black European. That's the pot calling the kettle black. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the pot calling the kettle European, black, white, or however it was said. I mean, I'm just not going to play this, talk around the idea of insult. You cannot sit there and present these books as being historical fact and then argue it ain't you. If you're not going to prove your generation, then you can't sit there and claim what side you're on. You can't say you're the African, you ain't proved nothing. You can't say you're the Indian, you haven't proved nothing. And you can't say you're the European. For all we know, you're the Persian. who looks just like us. So I just find it all, poison to the duty that you're actually really doing. And I'm trying to clean it up. Everybody's got the right to their opinion. They can go to their little corner and cry. That's what I did. And if people felt offense to like my outwardly cries, it's because this information presented. This is not a contest to me. Once previous to this, I'm showing you there's images showing my viewers that there's images that show black people have controlled Europe. Then there is no more. That's the white man's Bible. That's nonsense. That's not the white man's anything. He's borrowing my effing socks. He's borrowing my underwear. He's wearing my garment, like it says in the Bible. Nebuchadnezzar shall wear Israel like a garment. Or, this is all just distracting from you reading that book. And it's funny because, of the suggestions from the book. So that's truly what I want to say, because, it doesn't matter if people think I'm a dumbass, a moron. It really don't matter. If this man brings up that book's on paper. Paper matters. If this man brings up the declaration of this and starts quoting from it, then it was important enough for him to read. So the idea that our bonds don't matter or the control of our bonds don't matter, it's just fruitless talk.
All right. Well, that is certainly, you're right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
No, I mean, you know what page I'm on. I agree. I'm on the same page with him, but everybody has their own page to be on.
Exactly. 1,000% agreed. Okay, so I am going to pick back up in White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. G.D. Thompson 42. Shout out to you, G.D. Thompson 42. We all have been, and you just so nice to not put the F word out. You miraged it. We have all been effed over at some point in time, and now how can we all live together now? So very good point, G.D. Thompson 42. I know, again, my goal with this is to tell the truth. I personally will not carry the banter of slavery with my bloodline. I will not do it. My purpose is to break generational curses from a spiritual level and physical level for any level of participation that my bloodline had any part of indentured servitude on either side. Because we can't even sit and say on the Indigenous American, which my bloodline is split. I've already shared that with the family. We can't even say on Indigenous, America side that our folks wasn't participating in the fuckery. So me personally, I'm breaking the curse on both sides, on the European fuckery side, as well as if my ancestors on the America side participated in any fuckery. But for me, now this is just me, I enter and understand it is no accident that my bloodline carries both of those. And I enter and understand my fucking responsibility correct it. So now that's just me. Now how everybody else want to roll, that's your business. I'm not trying to down you. I'm not trying to tell you what the fuck to do. None of that. I'm just telling you what I'm, because for me and mine, this shit stops right here. I'm no longer going to bury my head in the sand, play these fuck games. I'm not doing it anymore. It is what it is. I look at the truth for what it is and do my corrective course accordingly. So I'm sorry, Brother Lex, go ahead. I think you had something to say.
Oh, no, absolutely not. See, this is the point that I'm here for. See, because what has been taken from us is the power to describe. It's a power of communication, and we all seem to lack it. A lot of people just heard what you said, and I'm going to tell you what happened to me while you said that. I sat there and said, wow, I'm a fucking idiot. I have a hard time expressing what she just said. People can see that something happens in their life and it's completely wrong. I don't care if it's every time they touch electronics, it F's up. Every time they get in relationships, it F's up. Every time they try to do something, the extra mile for their child, it messes up. Something is all blocking us. Think about how much of this information you've learned years ago, but it's not really till these past months that you can actually kind of move in a direction where it all just pieces together smoothly.
Right.
It is not just the idea inside of me there's a problem. I'm just generally saying for any viewer. It is the problem that there is an outside force that is putting something against us because of the things that have happened previously within our bloodlines. Because from my understanding and reading, I will do this to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me and bless those that love me. And when we understand that, these blessings and curses, you just see, if it's not within you, you have that cousin that always, you might be the black sheep, but your cousin always hurts everybody. You know, so if people, you know, I think it's hard to express these things. They always come out as riddles or you know, just niggery, you know, from my own mouth.
Right.
So I just think a lot of us have a problem with expression, and there are a lot of us that have the power to express. And the more we listen to those people, the more that sentence is built in our mind, and we have to understand this all extends from liberation, especially from the mental stance of I've been in prison for 400 years, to the understanding that, oh my God, we've just been overthrown and treated like shit for 100 years and murdered, and you know, the list goes on. But it changes things because your history is then resolved to you, and you're not just some slave from Africa with no history. Now you're the descendant of a king, a queen, a knight, a sir. You know, the Three Musketeers got pushed to Harlem Globetrotters. You know, and now some of these weird skills. You know, you ever see brothers box goofy in the street, and then compare that to Musketeers, you know, practice dueling or something like that. You know, why do our people do these things? You know, is it because of the Indian cultural blah blah blah, or is it the European cultural?
Right.
That's still encoded in them.
Right.
Sorry, that's all. Sorry.
Yep. No, very, very, very good points. And like I said, for me, when I was tracing back my lineage, and it only took me 3 generations to find out that the one side came from Europe. And that shit just hit me like, oh, hell no. And then it all started to come together and make sense. I said, oh, shit. Most of us are probably mixed with both, indigenous to the land and the black
I have this book,
Europeans.
The British Israelites. The British Israelites are evidence of our Hebrew origin. And I'm looking for a quote right now that says their goal is to pay the ransom and to unite with Israel. And I'm looking for that quote right now because I've read it since I've had this book. In chapter 2 of the book, and this has been in my hands the whole time, and I didn't know it until right now. It goes from the kings of Judah, and the king list never stops. It keeps going and going until it gets to the sovereigns of Great Britain. So the evidence that we have is all in these books. It literally shows you from the biblical prophets to the king. If when you call, I can send you a picture through text. You know,
gotcha.
to show you got to get this book, and it's less than $10.
Gotcha.
It's
Sounds
by
good.
Henry William J. Sr.
Okay. Cool. Sounds very, very good. So, all right, family. So, just wanted to put that out there so you can enter and understand my personal purpose of this. And I do like some things that are being said in the chat room by Purple Peel and GD Thompson 42. GD Thompson 42 said it's all about your heart consciousness. And then Purple Peel says what you allow is what will continue. And again, for me, it is breaking this cycle of my bloodline from either taking on titles that don't apply to me or titles that did apply to my bloodline that was in the motherfucking wrong, making amends, apologizing, putting that frequency of my words into the universe to correct it. And I personally feel until folks get real and go within and do that for self, it's going to always be this continuous cycle through generations searching. So that's why Brother Sean and I have been consistent through the inception of this show. Know thyself. It's very, very deep because those of us that are coming into this knowledge, you have a huge responsibility for yourself and for your bloodline. It's no accident that you are being exposed to this information. It's to clean it up. Clean it up for self, clean it up for the bloodline. So just, do you, but make sure when you're doing you, you're truly doing you in your best interest. So that means even if, a lot of those titles or whatever, if that shit was in the wrong, it was in the motherfucking wrong. Because at the end of the day, the universal law is what rules. What you put out will come back. It's really, really simple. We don't have to complicate it with titles and all of these. These were inventions by us because we have gotten so far away from just basic natural laws, simple laws. And we kept spiraling down and kept passing these things down through the bloodline. So now is the opportunity for you to clean it up. So let me go to, 717. I couldn't remember Sis's. I don't think this is Sis Cheryl. 717, I'm coming to you. If it is you,
727.
Okay, she's 727. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the shot. 717, I'm coming to you, sweetie. Sorry, I didn't see you were holding that long. Peace and love, 717.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sweetie, you got a lot of static in the background, but we can hear you.
One second. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, that's better. That's a lot better. Peace and love.
Peace and love. I've been listening to this show probably like the last 2 or 3 weeks now. I actually work at the time that the show's going on, but I just really appreciate the information and these books that you guys are putting out, that you've been reading. Just getting a chance to hear them while I'm at work, it's really persuaded me to get the books and read them myself too.
Good.
I just really appreciate keep going and just keep on. I think you guys are really doing a great thing here. This is really amazing. Just find more communities like this. Definitely trying to be more a part of that. Help me find myself as well. Just it's good to know where you come from, and I always try to push this kind of stuff towards my family so that we can kind of do it together a little bit. But I really appreciate what you're doing. I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, brother, and peace and love unto you. Thank you for calling in. It's truly appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Aaron. I might call back sometime in the future. You never know, but I'll definitely always be listening every Thursday.
Okay, please do, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Peace and love.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Okay, that was cool. That was real cool. All right, family. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Well, I'd like to let the family know a little bit about my background. You already know.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was an Eastern Star. My father, a black nationalist. Maternal and paternal grandfathers, master masons and Shriners. Mm-hmm. My grandmother, maternal grandmother, born under veils, communing with spirits. Paternal grandmother, the same. But my whole life, she told me we were Indians, period. It goes back, another 4 generations.
Mm-hmm.
Before there are ties to Europe.
Yep.
But my family also goes back to the foot wash in Farmsdale, Alabama, as Barry Turner lived by. They were part of the original families that started that. So, no information has ever been forbidden to me. Period. I've experienced things on every level. The things I share are from my perspective, my personal experiences. I can't tell anyone else what their bloodline is or isn't.
Right.
I can only tell you what mine is. I respect what everybody else do. But when the histories align that your people conquered mine, and you still want to live by those codes, we naturally have a problem. Unless it's all about breaking those curses. I'm here to correct mine. And part of that is protecting Mama and getting the colonizers to fuck from up out of here. I'm done.
Indeed. Indeed, Brother Sean. And thank you for sharing. I truly, truly appreciate that. I know I shared my side with one side coming from England, and then the rest of the side indigenous to the land, Choctaw, out of Alabama, and then out of the coastal South Carolina. So thank you for sharing that, and we hope we're sharing this with the family in the hopes that you will research your particular heritage as well. It is extremely, extremely important.
Can I ask a question?
To know self. Yes, sure thing. Go ahead, brother.
Who did the Indians war with? Does anybody know?
Who didn't they war with would be the better question.
Okay, so who I guess the better question is, who did the Indians lose their war with? This is the fall of the American Indian. It's actually to the French.
French, yeah.
So
yeah, I would agree with that.
If we got all these books that say that the European male goal was to come over and marry an Indian woman, like, I just hope we're all looking at this right. You know, the colonist seems to be the European that made these deals, these agreements to set up these colonies. The person that disrupts that is the French. And when they disrupt that, again, they free the slave. You know, I just hope we all see this for what it's worth, because I don't think we're enemies. This is all supposed to be the package deal whoever created us has made. You know, and here's the problem. When people aren't from here and they hear someone's story, and then they have a friend they can make deals with, and then they use that heard story to make the claim that they're from here. And this isn't about this man's personal history, because, you know, everybody has a little bit of that. If these prophecies are right, the union is supposed to take place. The problem is the $5 Indian that sits there and says, you know, I'm part Indian, and then he uses the stories of all of our collectiveness, you know,
right,
and somehow weasels documents, and that's the actual problem, you know, in my opinion, you know. But again, this isn't to say anything about anybody. It's just these things is what has happened. You know, we can let things go the way they are. That's the decision to let them go, or that's just, I thought about it for a while, but I never acted in the time. That's just neglect.
And I'm not saying it's one or the other for anybody listening or anybody that's on the phone with us. I just, if I die the way my documents are right now, I'm just another American citizen of Ohio. Why in 2020 has there been some law lifted that now people can claim their title? Now, who could that possibly matter to? I mean, the only titles that matter are the title of Edom, the dukes and duchesses, and the titles of kings and queens. So, in reality, this isn't saying to somebody that's proxy, pretending to be me and you can use. Those people have already been pretending to be king and queen. Prince Alfred, right? King William, Prince William, right? No. What they did is you can now be the descendant of your Indian chief father, or you can be the descendant of your knight great-great-great-grandfather from Europe. See, this is what we're doing. Because you, in my opinion, what is going to happen when the white man realizes he's the African? See, this Bible says they're going to wake up one day and say, our fathers taught us lies. What happens when these brothers and sisters realize they're the glory of Europe, not some African with no history? What do you think they're going to do to the people that lied to them? This is why it ends with nation versus nation, people versus people. That means you start as nations and you break down into ethnicities. All I'm trying to say is, like, look, if we do our paperwork, all it does is get us past the gate. We can all go hide in the forest as an ethnicity now, and we don't even have to battle as a nation and blah, 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 because this is what the prophecy is telling us to do. It is saying, follow us home. Nobody here is my enemy because I can't see you. Nobody says anything that's offending me. It's the mindset. Because it was evil minds that thought this, it is evil minds that did this, it's evil minds that's going to wake up tomorrow and say, when he gets on that phone with anybody else, scramble the call. When he tries to upload a video, scramble the signal. They want everybody to stay asleep because what happened? The revolution is not televised. There's no more TV stations. Everything is on YouTube. Everything's by the phone. This information that this man suggested, and this is what breaks this corporation. Everybody knows it.
Damn.
Where are you going to be when the glass breaks? It's an image. That's what Revelation keeps telling you. It's just an image. It's a fractured mirror. That's all. And the image of Lexwell will die with America. As will the image of all of us. Because, like you said, it's all paper. But just to get a head start ahead of everybody, it'd be good to have the paper. Because at the gate, there's guys with guns. And they clock in, and they play the paper game. This isn't play Lexwell's paper game. It's play their paper game to get on the other side. They're going to chase us. It's inevitable. You have the power of creating anything in the fucking earth. They mimic everything you do. You make poetry beautiful, they mimic that until it's garbage. You make rap beautiful, they mimic that until a white man's king of rap. Now rap's dead? Good. It's been poisoned. You were the king of soul till they made Justin Timberlake? What? So understand what's going on. They don't have the ability that you have. You have the ability to see the earth for what it is. It's not a rat race, it's a luxury. And every day you sit back in this luxury, they try to find a way to poison it. So once you start playing that food game, there's only so many things I can eat before I'm poisoned, you're going to realize the only way to get away from these sick people is to leave. This isn't overthrow them. The information's out. It's going to spread like fire.
That I do agree with.
The reaction to it is obvious. They've been making me look like a thief on TV for 50 to 70 years when I'm actually the king of the earth because the blood of the king flows through the bloodline. So once everybody comes to terms, wait, that's the problem. Nobody's going to come to terms with this.
It's deep. It's deep, brother, but very, very well said. Let me bring on another caller, 646. I don't know why it's showing you all holding that long. So 646, let me bring you on. Hopefully you have not been holding that long. 646, your line is open. It has you like holding for 30 minutes. I'm like, I ain't seen him in no queue.
Peace and love, Sister Rhonda. How are you?
Peace and love. I'm good. How are you? It's good to hear your voice.
Fantastic. Likewise, all the time. Peace and love, Sandra, Brother Sean, Brother
Peace and love, brother.
Peace and love, family in the chat rooms and 832 on the line. It's always good to hear y'all guys. It's so refreshing to see so much being aired out the way it needs to be. You know, it almost reminds me of the spring cleaning where you just knock all the dust off the mats and you shake and clean everything. You change the closets and wash all the dishes all over again. And, oh, man, it's refreshing. Very refreshing. Very. Yeah, now, I still though have to weigh in on this here, this concept of paperwork, its importance, and the angle from which, if I might say, that Les argues concerning its importance versus what the relevance of the importance is with the paperwork. Now, for one thing, if you take a mathematical problem, you know, one of them long ones that you got to work out, and if you're doing it for somebody or to teach somebody, you want to do all the steps to show them how to do it. All right, so that's a form of paperwork. It doesn't change the essence of the mathematical problem or solution. It just illustrates and shows a form.
Reverse mathematics.
Pardon?
Excuse me for interrupting. Reverse mathematics, where you prove the solution?
And yeah, both back and front, yeah. Just a mathematical problem. The same with if you take, for instance, a course like probability and statistics. Someone can do paperwork to make anything look like anything they wish according to their agenda. Okay? Now, you know, we look at and take to heart a lot of things written, and that was one of the traps. We ate up a whole lot of written lies, and that was the curse. And the writing is the spell in the first place, so, you know, that takes you deeper inside of a curse. Now, the power to free yourself is in the essence of your being. That's your thought patterns. That's the mind. Now,
can I ask you a question?
If you write a book, right, to express who you are, who your 5 generations are, and further, all right, that you've come from, and who you are presently and where you want to go, all right, that's paperwork that works. But if you write a UCC or submission to some whatever set up in a kangaroo whatever court that you need to prove or ask permission to be allowed to say that your paperwork is correct, that falls under a whole different program of significant paperwork, and it goes into even a form of consensus. They do that every year. They want to take that thing, that consensus. Don't they do that? The consensus reports, they still do that. But somewhere in that book that you keep referencing, Brother Les, I'm almost sure there's a scripture that forbids consensus. The scripture that I keep hearing you reference.
So
I'm sure that somewhere in that book.
So you refer to it as that book?
A scripture. Pardon?
So you refer to it as that book?
Yes, because it's one of many. It's one of many, and it's not even the source of the man. It's the one.
Is that to say that you're from the mentality that you don't respect it? You have every right. I'm just asking.
No, not even. It's to say that my mental, my mental operation respects only what of it that makes the most of itself known and aligns with my spirit, with my being. And anyone else who want to use it for something else, it's on them. All right? I don't worship books. I don't worship people.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
At all times.
You stated that writing is a spell, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Can you write? Sir, can you write? I don't understand. You either can or you cannot. Sir, are you there? Hello?
Please, I mean, if you want me to get rhetorical or if you're being rhetorical, I don't know which.
Sure. Bro, you just said writing is a spell.
I read and write and do arithmetic.
I'm asking you about the statement that you made. Out of your mouth, writing is a spell. I said, can you write? You said you can write. So tell me what spells you wrote today.
That's not your business, is it? Why do you need to know what I wrote today?
Well, because you said writing.
Oh, boy, here we go, y'all. I'm going to have to
I wanted to understand your craft.
That's not important. What's the importance of that? The message is that written, permission-asking stuff is different from
you sound like you're part of a group. You sound like somebody that's in charge of the group. You sound like somebody that's in charge of the group told you what to say. You're not making sense. If writing is a spell and you know how to write, then you're a wizard, right? You're a witch.
You are
right?
too, but you don't recognize it. What's the difference?
So I asked you, what spells did you write today?
I said that's not your business. That was my personal. Whatever I did, whatever I wrote was mine.
Why is it none of my business what spells you wrote today? So your whole job is to say that writing is for nothing, right? So let me ask you a question. You brought up kangaroo court. What is a kangaroo court by your definition?
That's those made-up places that you feel obligated to take paperwork to prove who you are and what family you came from, and to get your rightful place back. I did not know I needed. Hey,
let me say something. I did not know I needed to go to court to prove what family I came from. Now you have put another piece together for me. So I want you to tell your master he failed tonight.
Thank you. And he'll ask your permission to accept your word, but it doesn't matter.
He's like a vampire. To come into my house, he must ask permission.
Right.
I can
so it
see
doesn't
past
matter.
it, man.
But the point,
it's just a different voice saying the same thing. Do you own a car? Do you own a house? Then paperwork matters. Have you ever been to jail? Did you have to sign for anything?
You. It
Do
matters to
children?
you.
Obviously, it matters to everybody that has a state job, a federal job.
It matters
to everybody
those...
connected to those jobs. You're making stuff up. You're talking in untruths. You know it
matters to
what kind of car do you drive? I'm gonna come over
matters
because you ain't got no paperwork
who...
on it. I'm going to come over and take your car because you don't got no paperwork. If you go talk crazy, I'm going to talk crazy.
Do.
Hey, that's right. That's right. And what do liars do? They lie. So you ain't got no car? You ain't got no house? Are you outside? Are you in a phone booth? We ain't got no phone booths no more. Where are you at?
Where I'm at. Wouldn't you love to know who you working for?
No, bro.
That don't make sense.
No, bro. I'm trying to prove that paperwork matters and you're not outdoors, that you're inside of a house owned by something with paperwork to prove the ownership. When you drive somewhere and you sign that pay stub, you put your efforts to paper proves, paper's your evidence, paper's your witness. You don't respect paper. You go come on and say paper don't matter. That's no different than the other person saying paper doesn't matter, but then he starts quoting the laws that bind us. That's crazy talk.
That's what I'm saying.
You missed it. No insult directly to you. That's crazy talk. You are the prince of princes, sir. That's crazy talk. That's no different than the guy saying the earth grows trees when we know trees come from seeds. You're talking in myths, man. You're talking like a Freemason.
Let me ask you this.
My father was a Freemason. When he talks these riddles, I ignore him.
But let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
You have a car?
Nope. I'm broke.
You got a pair of shoes? You got a suit or a pair of pants? If I come up to you with a big gun and stick it in your head and say, "Give me it," is it mine?
No, you said you said you use a weapon. See, that's the difference. See, now, who walks around with paperwork for their pants? Nobody wants somebody else's pants.
No, I use that because you're broke. I just use that as an example because you're broke.
See, why do you think I say car and house? Because the paperwork behind them. Obviously, they did not choose a person that's going to come in and hold his own.
So the difference is that if I take it, I take it, whether you got paperwork or not. That's
you are
the
a
point.
Man that works against the melanated races. What group do you work
for? Thank you. And you sound like you work for them. Very good.
Yeah, I work for the people. I call myself Lex World of Servant. I don't even think that you rebutted your argument correctly.
Okay, gentlemen. So just to get us back on track, what's your point? So, Brother 646, I'm going to start with you. So keep your point to 2 minutes. Don't interrupt each other so we can move on.
Yes. And again, my major point. Well, you want to go first, you said? What?
No, you first, Brother 646.
Oh, because I am interrupting, so I don't know. I mean, but in any event.
no interrupting, but go ahead. Go ahead.
In any event, my major point is that the consensus and paperwork are like two things that are the one and the same, where somebody want to keep track of who you are, where you at, where you rest your head. And that's like an enemy who wants to set you up. And on that score alone, paperwork not only doesn't matter to that extent, but if you're going to do paperwork, you need to learn how to do it properly, where you're not giving away your life-threatening information in that manner. But for the most part, the only real paperwork that should matter for our folks is something that helps them to know the experiences that you have gone through and how what you've done may be able to help them, if at all, and the difference between what's out there and what you don't really have to be a part of, even though everything seems to school you to being a part of it. And I rest.
All right, indeed. Okay, Brother Lex, the floor is open to you to make your point, and then we're going to move on. We're not going to go back and forth on this subject. State what your point is. No asking each other questions, none of that. So we can move on. Go ahead, Brother Lex.
I'm just going to make a couple of statements. First, to say a kangaroo court. A court is an actual kangaroo court. That's a court that doesn't respect the law that they have to follow. Nobody's proven that situation. So that's somebody just saying fears and spreading fear. Not to say anything that offends anybody. My friend always calls it fear porn. People like fear and they like to stay away from what they're afraid of, but they like to hear about it to know how far it is from them. And then someone said consensus, and I think that what they meant was census. And here's the point about the census that I don't think this person understands. How do you prove ancestry? It's from the census records of the past. So this, again, doesn't make sense. Almost like they're asked to come on here and say paperwork doesn't matter, even though they probably have a car, they probably worked all their life, they probably want their retirement, which the paperwork proves. This is becoming a distraction from the book you're reading, and I encourage you to read from that book because, again, the last thing you read from that book is something that is inflicted on us. Count the people so you know how much to cut down. Count the number of trees so you know how much to cut down. And when you look at this, this is the same politics we were using on them, so they're just playing from our handbook. It's like watching a movie of the player that gets played, which is why that's a popular theme in movies. That's all I have to say. And thank you.
All right.
Thank you both.
Indeed. All right, Brother 646, thank you so much, and it was good hearing your voice.
Likewise, all the time, and thank you. And peace and love to the family.
Okay, peace and love. I did want to send a shout out. They've left us to the chat room because we went into overtime at 10 o'clock. So shout out to Purple Pill, shout out to Sandy Red 01, and then shout out to GD Thompson 42. They're all gone. It was your presence was very much so appreciated in the chat. You really brought forth a lot of good information. And sorry you all couldn't get in. Some of them tried to call in like 20 minutes before we went into overtime, and the lines got blocked. So, hey, what are you going to do? So anyhow, shout out to them. Okay, so here we go. Back to the white trash, the 400-year untold history of class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. I'm on page 36. We had started talking about the control of population among the white servants. So now this is the interesting part. Who the hell is this person? Hold on a second. I got to go back one page to get this. Morton's New England landscape contained ripe grapes supported by lusty trees, dainty fine round rising hillocks, and luscious streams that made so sweet a murmuring noise to hear as would ever lull the senses with delightful sleep. He connected fertility to pleasure in the prevailing medical content. Women, it was said, were more likely to conceive if they experienced sexual satisfaction. All right, so some male ego, sexual shit, whatever. So Morton was consumed with the fertility of the physical environment that he marveled at the apparent ease with which Indian women became pregnant. So I just found that interesting that this particular Morton cat was looking at the beauty of the land in the Americas and equating it also with, maybe that is also the reason why Indian women, so meaning the indigenous women of the Americas, were able to conceive so easily, although he wanted to also throw in their sexual pleasure. So John Lawson contended that women long married without children in other places have removed to Carolina and became joyful mothers. Okay, so what I'm reading now is how on one hand, they wanted to control the white population if that white population was not producing. So if they were not being the laborers of the land like they were supposed to. So if they were becoming a burden, in other words, where they needed to be supported, they wanted to shut that down. But their ultimate goal was to have the white population. And now I'm talking about the white folks that are starting to come on board to be the overlord slavers, or in charge of the white slave population, wanting to raise the numbers of the productive white population. Okay, so John Lawson contended that women long married without children in other places have removed to Carolina and become joyful mothers. They had an easy travail in their childbearing, in which they are so happy as seldom miscarry. The argument went that happy, healthy European women move closer to nature in America, like deer in the wild. Women in the New World became instinctive, docile breeders. Breeding had a place in more than one market. In Virginia and elsewhere in the Chesapeake region in the early 17th century, a gender imbalance of 6-1 among indentured servants gave women arriving from England an edge in the marriage exchange. Writing of Maryland in 1660, former indentured servant George Alsop claimed that women just off the boat found a host of men fighting for their attention. Females could pick and choose. Even servants had a shot at marrying a well-heeled planter.
Oh, wow.
So notice they're putting two categories, right? So they're saying folks that were coming over freed, and then even servants got to pretty much pick them up an old man.
Yeah. Well, I'd imagine.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
To do with, forgive me. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead, brother.
It more has to do with the Indians or the de jure people here, the Aboriginals, already have their eyes on whom they want to mate with or marry within their own tribes. So then you would have like leftovers or scragglers, that would have to be the second wife or the third wife, and then some of them would probably not be so happy about that, and the idea of this new like fresh meat type idea on the dating scene. Now imagine you're like, you're not Pocahontas, you're nobody important, you're not the chief's daughter, you've been washing, Pocahontas, and nobody in your village of any authority has ever said, "Oh, you're the one for me," or anything like that. Then here comes, the Three Musketeers, and they're like, "Hey, I don't care what she looks like, marry her, and the land is yours." And then, it's like the leftovers.
Yep.
Have the opportunity to unite and not be alone type thing.
Yep. And she's going to go into that a lot more as well. Exactly what you said about folks hooking up for the purpose of getting land. Absolutely. So Alsop called such unions copulative marriage, through which women sold their breeding capacity to wealthy husbands. In language that was decidedly uninhibited, he wrote that women went to market. Woo, child, honey, I can't. Let me go back over this.
What's that? Excuse me for interrupting. What's that called today? Another guy has a baby with somebody else's family today.
Surrogate.
No.
Surrogate?
No, that's you're talking about bastardizing? Is that what you're speaking on? Or just side chick? Where did you stand, Brother Lex?
In vitro fertilization? Is he there?
I don't know. Let me make sure. Did he drop out? No, he's still there. All right. So when he's ready to tell us where he was going with what it means today. So here's this next statement. In language that was decidedly uninhibited, he wrote that women went to market with their virginity. Another promoter.
Tinder.
Oh. That raggedy ass application, yeah.
Swipe right, swipe left. That's the same difference, except for they don't.
Can you hear me now?
Well.
Yeah, we can hear you now. We didn't hear what you were saying before. What were you saying it mean today?
When a couple, like say it's usually in a rich couple, the wife doesn't want to lose her figure, and they get somebody to have the baby for them.
Yeah,
they
might
say,
right then. She said surrogate.
Yeah. See, that's
she said surrogate.
And then when that part you just read there, that's just straight up porn. I'm a virgin. You can knock me up. I mean that's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was making a joke because one of the actors, T.I., I guess it was having his daughter.
He just came out with some fuckery. Exactly.
What?
Having her hymen every year.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah, just really ignorant shit, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, I know. All right. Another promoter writing about Carolina went so far as to say that a woman could find a husband in America no matter what she looked like. Well, damn. If newly arrived, she appeared civil and was
not
under
anymore.
years of age, some men would purchase her for his wife. Well, damn. They went all the way up to 50. God damn.
So it was off the charts here. Everybody was smoking
it was
weed.
off the chain. Yeah. Which, by the way, I found out that part of when people were granted land, because, they had to plant the crop and send a certain amount of the crop back to Europe. Of course, they had to pay taxes because it was all commerce. But each farmer was required to plant a set amount of hemp.
Ooh.
And every year, and they had to send that shit back to Europe. I was like, get the hell out of here.
Type in industrial uses for cannabis, for marijuana. Yeah, hemp.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep.
so yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, so now basically we are coming full circle with the whole motherfucking marijuana. I'm like, oh, okay then. Y'all want to sit up here and play these games. As a matter of fact, they said that hemp was the crop of choice over cotton.
Because with the hemp, you take the buds and you can smoke the buds, and with the stem, you can make clothes.
Exactly. Make a whole bunch of paper, a bunch of stuff.
Cotton, you could make soft clothes. So it would be the choice of, do you want hemp undergarments or hemp outer garments and cotton undergarments? So, that's why we do a fruit of the loom cotton. It's the fruit of the loom machine.
That makes sense. And
I was really high one day.
Sorry, go ahead, brother. Yeah, I can see. So it goes, industrial hemp, this is for the family. Industrial hemp has many uses, including paper, textile, biodegradable plastic, construction, health food, and fuel. It is one of the fastest growing biomasses known and one of the earliest domesticated plants known. It also runs parallel with the green future objectives that are becoming increasingly popular. So, yeah, that really hit home with me when I found out that hemp was a required crop that had to be planted a set amount, and they shipped it back over to Europe. So, people was getting their weed on, plus, of course, the industrial use of the plant itself. So very, very interesting. All right. So copulative marriage was one option. Remarriage was another. Men of Jamestown found they could increase. Here we go. You hit it out the park, Lex. Men of Jamestown found they could increase their acreage and add to the sum of laborers by marrying a widow whose husband had bequeathed land to her. In the scramble to get land and laborers during the tobacco boom, members of the council devised various means to get their hands on land, and not always ethically. One man married a woman because her first husband shared the last name of a wealthier dead man. He scammed the system by confusing the two names in order to get title to the more desirable property. Widows were obvious conduits of wealth and land, and with high mortality rates prevailing throughout the 17th century, those survived rampant disease would likely have married 2 or 3 times. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, so I'm trying to see where am I going next. Why did I highlight that part? I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
You have to realize that it was a bunch of men coming over. And they were all criminals and this, that, and the other. So, of course, they would marry anything. Because anything with any sense wasn't fucking with them.
Right.
So I guess they had to ship women over for them because it was nothing here for them to do but sheep and shit like that.
And it's interesting because I was watching this series, Netflix series on dude that built Versailles, melanated king that built Versailles. And he exactly stated that because his brother Philip was the one that told him, look, ain't nobody messing with you, dude. The soldiers are not messing with you to go over to the New World. You already owe them money for all these other wars that you've been fighting. You was fighting Spain forever. They done with you on that. So you can forget about getting the soldiers to come over, but you can send the prisoners over. So they sent over the prisoners, and then the next thing was to send women over to keep the quote prisoners who became indentured servants or whatever that was working the land. But the next wave was to send over the women to keep them happy. So that is a duly noted point, Brother Sean, that originally when folks were coming over from Europe, the indigenous women wasn't messing with them like that. So that is a good point. That is a good point to note. All right. Okay, I'm trying to see. I don't know. Oh, I'll just read this part. I highlighted it now. I don't know why I highlighted it, but maybe it'll come back to me. To the governor in Jamestown, only the meanest of men, those who had recently crept out of indentured servitude, could find common cause with the rebels. Oh, I know why I highlighted it. Berkeley dismissed Bacon as an upstart and a demagogue. Other prominent supporters of the governor called the rebels ye scum of the country, and here's where the language gets especially evocative: offscouring of society. Offscouring human fecal waste was one of the most common terms of derision for the indentured servants and English wandering vagrants. Meanwhile, landholders who sided with Bacon were dismissed as idle men whose debauchery and ill husbandry had led them into debt. The rebels were directly compared to swine rooting around the neck. So I guess I should have backed up one paragraph. Battle over class interests, land, and widows came naturally to Virginians, and at times grew quite deadly. Bacon's rebel of 1676 was one of the greatest conflicts the colony witnessed. It pitted a stubborn governor, William Berkeley, against Nathaniel Bacon, a recent immigrant of some means, but also frustrated ambition. Historians still debate the causes of the crisis and its ultimate meaning, but there is ample evidence to show that the participants made it about class warfare. Bacon wanted Berkeley to launch attacks on tribes of Indians who ostensibly threatened the more social, vulnerable people of Virginia's frontier, and he made himself a leader of disaffection. A power struggle ensued. Okay, so I guess Bacon came over wanting to run shit. Berkeley was against them, and just a little background, Berkeley in previous chapters, I didn't read this to you all, but Berkeley had set up a colony where he wasn't treating indentured servants as slaves. So that's the whole background on that. All right, so it goes. Slaves and servants joined Bacon's force too, being promised their freedom after the expected showdown with Berkeley. Nothing like this had occurred in Virginia before. Slavery had become slow to take hold, with only around 150 slaves counted in 1640, and barely 1,000 out of a total population of 26,000 in 1670. Now that's deep, y'all. So where are these millions of slaves they talking about? The records don't show it. I keep saying it. The records do not show millions of African slaves.
There was one record.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sis.
There was one record I heard that the ones that they did bring, the few that they brought, they used him to mate with the Indian women. So the title of Negro was kind of blurred, and they couldn't tell one from the other. It was like a property grab, you know.
Yeah, but even that, it was only if you look at millions of people, and let's say they brought 10,000 Africans, and I think I'm giving that number high as fuck. I really do. That's still nothing. That's nothing in compared to millions. The 12 million that they claim. The record, again, I'm going to say, the records do not show it.
Neither does common sense. They can't move that many people now.
Well, yeah, because, you know, as we were talking in Black Nobility, and at the beginning of this series, shit, folks was dying off just coming from Europe over here. People wasn't even making that voyage. So it just still boggles my mind that folk want to hold on to the lie of 12 million African slaves when the records don't show the shit. It don't. And anybody can go check the census records, check your own shit, and you can go back 5 generations. And you are not going to see, more than likely, 99.9% of the time, you are not going to see your folks as slaves or African. Now, you'll see them as Negro. You'll see them as Black. You may even see them as colored, Indian, and occupation will be more than likely farmer or some type of tradesman. So, anyhow, Massachusetts.
You got a point.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
No, I said no. You got a point because they went into servitude if they were melanated in the beginning, and then and something's bothering me, and I wanted to bring this up because you know you guys are the strongest minds on the subject. Okay. So if the Moors are here, okay, and this is going on, then you have the Moor Sundry Act. Okay.
Right.
So
1883, I think it was.
So if the Moors are over here, this is going on, And I guess it's Charlotte that does this. I want to say Sophia or something like that, but it's one of these queens that do this. And what comes to mind is this Britain outlaws slavery, like they freed the slaves or something like that. Okay, and then so everybody goes. Once this happens, these uprisings happen, or it seems these uprisings happen, and it seems like most of the black nations are thrown into slavery, but it don't seem like all of them are. See, it seems like one of them is still in control. It seems like one of them sold the rest out. And that's my point.
I totally agree. Yep, and we agree with you on that. Absolutely. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
Well, see, that's the thing. I can't figure it out. It's what's keeping me up at night. I'm not saying it's just a saying, but this is the part that bothers. It becomes obvious. Mm-hmm. These people are not in control, and just to throw this on top of everything, nothing to do with nothing. I sat there and I typed in, I want to know who the Canaanites are. So I typed in, what is the haplogroup of the Canaanites? So there was some fake stuff, but then they gave me it J2. So then when I typed in J2, it didn't want to give it straight out, but then it gave out who is J2. And it's the people that call themselves the south of the border peoples.
South of the
Mexican. Right. So then
the Asiatic Spanish.
Yeah, but because King Mexi down in South America, that's where the Mexican title started, according to Butler in his book.
Well, the old Mex are called the old Mex for a reason,
Exactly.
So, when you get into the new Nuovo or whatever thing, it's just, and I don't want to play a guessing game about it. That's why I just typed in what's the haplogroup. Let's just get by all this garbage.
Right.
Doesn't matter who anybody writes. Let's just see what's inside their blood. So the haplogroup reveals that the people that are not Spanish, Spain, but in Mexico, right? But those people are all throughout the region, so they have a complicated time, because they're not saying the Latins and Hispanics, they're not cutting it down like that kind of line.
Exactly.
So I gotta do a little bit more studying, and then this is gonna narrow it down to.
Yeah. You got to keep us updated on that, and that's gonna crush a lot of feelings. You know that, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, because these books, and because it's not just these books. It's the imagery too. Again, if you didn't have these pictures of statues and black faces, bonded with metal, it's too valuable to throw out. Like, okay, you can't put, it's like, come on. So yeah, everything has got to unravel itself.
Indeed, and we're here to see it. I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Hey, bro, we've always maintained that it was melanated beings behind.
Yeah, we have. I think Sean and I were probably the only two melanated people that was fucking saying that for years.
Yeah, you said it 2 weeks ago.
We've been saying it. Yeah, years we've been saying it. Because Brother Sean and I had a conversation, and we were like, you know what? Gotta be melanated people at the end of the day behind this shit. That's the only thing that would make sense.
Because the Moors confess to teaching them everything and to put them in position to be in power while they go to sleep. And then when they wake up, they'll get everything back. That's their confession.
Yeah, that is a confession.
Brother Lex, didn't I hear you say the Canaanites were the priest class?
No, of what?
Of under Moses?
No. When Moses was around, Moses never had control of the temple of Jerusalem, however you want to look at it. And that is why we have these writings of Jerusalem with an H.
Yeah.
And what solidifies it for me is, what do they call Jesus? Jesus. So, it becomes where did they build? Where did they rebuild the third temple? Well, they rebuilt the third temple down there in South America by Brazil. So, when you start to look at how all these people fit into the picture, see, what did it for me was this whole, they lived in the promised land just like we live in the promised land, and we don't have these food supply problems to where we want to go run into Mexico and say, I need a fair chance. So, like, it baffles me that things are so bad in their countries that they drive out in these mass migrations that it just, it's like the reverse of an exodus. It's a flooding. You know what happens when a flooding happens? Like, people drown.
Right.
So I can see that if all these people come in, their pockets are their pockets of the world are empty of that person's space. So there's space for me to live in Argentina, or there's space for me to live in blah blah blah, because they just came up with like 5,000 of them just came up. You mean there's 5,000 jobs free in those areas? I understand that they're arguing, there's no work in those areas. Oh, it's cool if there's no work, because I could just go and take a couple of machines and sell Kool-Aid to get off the ground. I mean, like, do they have Kool-Aid there? Ingenuity is going to take us a lot farther, and that's what they think it needs to be here. But the problem is we're in a portion where everybody feels like there's too much. Yet people feel like there's not enough. So how do people feel like there's not enough feel when there's this influx of people that you stole the same land, you're not doing that good with it? Like, that's confusing.
Right. Everybody trying to bring their asses over here, basically.
Yeah, but you got the same resources where you were. So you beat those resources into dust. And
exactly. Didn't manage them properly. Right.
Right. And they're turning
Didn't
the
manage
land
them properly.
into sand.
Exactly. Not in. Yep. Agreed.
Just to cap it off,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, look at how they're portrayed in the movies. And that's all. That speaks for itself. I don't make the movies. You know who makes the movies. So this is their view of those people.
Indeed. I'm going to shout out to Sis Cheryl. She sent us one thing. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to go to the last words for the family. When the first blacks came to Virginia in 1619, they were treated as bound servants and were freed when their terms expired. In all, there were probably not more than a few hundred such cases. Sometime in the 1640s, the practice began of selling imported blacks as servants for life. In short, this form of de facto slavery preceded legalized slavery in the 1660s and 1670s statutes in Virginia and Maryland gave slavery its formal distinguishing features and inheritable status of servitude for life. Soon, restrictions on slave mobility, along with a harsh system of discipline, were written into the black codes of all Southern colonies. For the South, this decision to deny blacks the status of white servants was largely grounded in prejudice based on racial differences. Those who justify slavery on the grounds that growers of such plantation crops as tobacco, rice, and indigo needed a stable supply of labor ignore the fact that the need could have been supplied equally well by a system of bound servitude. Once established, the peculiar institution, as slavery came to be called, became self-perpetuating. It was an economic system, a system of human relations, and a system of power. Southerners came to regard slavery as as essential to their culture, political influence, and economic well-being. Okay, Sis Cheryl, that's interesting. I would love to know the source of that information. So I'll sync up with you a little later to get the source of that information. But thank you, Sis Cheryl. Okay, so with that said, we're going to do last words. Brother Lex, you have any last words for the family?
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for committing to being there week by week, all three of you. Thank you for having similar opinions and different opinions, all three of you. You're amazing the way you work together, and I appreciate the opportunity to agree and to disagree. And you know, if you feel like listen, you know, and I know it's your show. If you feel like I'm being rude by interrupting you, you have the power to say, "Shut the hell up, dude," and I have the obligation to respect that you're saying that. And to the caller, I'm sorry for being rude this week and last week. If you do that, it's me being rude. But just like you feel you have an obligation, I feel like I have an obligation. Both of us are fighting for the people's mind, whether we know what we're doing or we don't, whether this is by choice or whether this is by fate. Good luck on your walk.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you, brother. Sis Sandra, you have any last words for the family?
You know, you and Brother Sean said that you can tell what kind of genetics you have by how you act.
Yes.
And I started laughing because, you know, I have Apache. And Apache always was fighting. So I understand. I was cracking up all week about that because I'm not one of those kind of people just let it, you know, lay and die. I have to just try to get it out there, and then you choose what you want to do with it. So thank you so much for that information. It was really valuable for me this week.
Indeed, sis. Brother Sean, you have any last words for the family?
Yeah. Y'all know I'm going to be me.
Indeed.
I don't know how to be nobody else. But I also love and respect the fact that everything I say is not agreed with.
Yes.
Because we all don't have the same path.
No, we don't.
Right. We don't.
I mean, the end result on certain levels may be the same, but how we get there is determined by our path and purpose.
Right.
My path and purpose says fuck paperwork, because even to utilize the paperwork and quote unquote be classified as free, you're still in their system listed as free. So either way it go, when it comes to writing, we stuck. In every game, there's rules to be followed. That's why we utilize the driver's license and everything else. It's part of the game, but it doesn't control my mind. I know that I'm using it for a purpose. I'm not enslaved to it. It's a tool that I'm using. Just like when I write, it's a tool that I'm using to navigate through these seas of commerce. Just navigating on the minimum level. But mentally, I'm totally free of this. That's why I don't feel the need to file paperwork, because you don't really control or own me. With or without license, I drive, period. Anywhere I want to go, I go. I don't have to go across state borders. We got millions of motherfuckers coming here every year that walk the fuck in, not coming through the gate, not showing shit. You got plenty of people leaving here the same way, not showing shit. So I just prefer not to show them shit. I fuck with you when I want to fuck with you, which is the right of any contract. I fuck with you how I want to fuck with you. But that's just to benefit me and to help me along my journey. It's not that I'm planning on keeping the system alive. All my focus and energy is going to its complete removal and destruction. That's the type of shit I write every day. Yes, with the intent of it being magic. Fully aware. Love y'all.
All right. Love you too, brother. Indeed. And shout out to Sis Cheryl. The passage that I read was from Encyclopedia Virginia, runaway slaves and servants in colonial Virginia, contributed by Tom Costa. So thank you all so much. Thank you for the family for joining us tonight for a wonderful series. Thank you, Brother 832. Love you much. Thank you, Brother 646. I love you much. Thank you to the new caller, 717. Thank you, Sis Cheryl, 727. Appreciate everyone's contribution, the chat room. We will be back. Thank you, Brother Lex, for joining us as well. So we will be back next week. We're going to pick up where we left off, and peace and love, family.